This podcast of the Equine Forum is brought to you by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program at the College of Business. It all begins in 15 seconds right after this word from our podcast sponsor.
The University of Louisville Equine Industry Program at the College of Business is now offering a graduate certificate, which can be completed in 15 or 30 weeks and be done as a standalone or used as 20% of your MBA. Classes at both the undergraduate and graduate level are forming now for August.
From the rail to your radio, this is the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Jackie's Warrior to the outside. Elite Power has to go toward the center of the racetrack, but still fourth. Super Ocho, Jackie's Warrior, CZ Rocket. Maniwa runs toward the rail. Elite Power from the outside. CZ Rocket, Elite Power coming on. Elite Power, Iran Ortiz Jr. to win the Qatar Racing Breeders' Cup Sprint by 2 lengths on the line. Caravel leads it. Emirati Anna up the inside to challenge. Caravel, Emirati Anna, Creative Force runs on from third. Caravel, Emirati Anna, Creative Force third. Caravel and Tyler Gaffalione, 42-1 in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
With an eighth of a mile to go, here comes Temple. Gaffalione's got him rolling. High Noon Rider is charging. Artie's Rumor and Mug's-O-Matic. Who do you like here? It's now surging on the outside. High Noon Rider getting up to win it. 12-volt man with an upset possibility up the fence. Final eighth of a mile driven out. Hanalase Houdini. 12-volt man getting to him. Here's 12-volt man emboldened with a rail run. And 12-volt man springs the upset in the Claiming Crown Jewel.
Now here's Mike Penna.
Good morning once again, everyone. It is post time for the show that launched a network, the Equine Forum, all presented by TwinSpires and all right here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Mike Penna, Baron in the backstretch. Happy to have you along for the ride again this morning, right up until 11 a.m. Eastern, as I look back on the Breeders' Cup and look ahead to this afternoon's Claiming Crown at Churchill Downs. You are listening to the show on Sirius 216, XM 204, affiliates in Lexington, Louisville, and across the country, and streaming worldwide and podcast on our HRRN website at horseracingradio.net. And don't forget, you can listen to podcasts of this show and all of our shows on our website or wherever you access your podcasts. Well, what are your top takeaways from this year's Breeders' Cup? I think number one, the Europeans made the biggest statement they have ever made in the 39-year history of the Breeders' Cup, dominating the grass races by winning 6 of the 7 turf events. The lone exception being 42-1 long shot Caravel in the turf sprint. The Pennsylvania bred, of course, was aided by the slow break of heavy favorite Golden Pal, but once he missed the break, it was anyone's race, and Caravel took full advantage. I can imagine that jockey Tyler Gaffalione was a little bit surprised to look around and see that he was on the lead and the speedy Golden Pal was nowhere to be found. But in the other 6 turf races, all won by Euros, it really wasn't much of a contest. And it appears as if the gap has widened significantly between the top European turf horses and the top American grass runners. The other thing I take away from this year's Breeders' Cup is that Jockey Junior Ortiz Jr. and Ryan Moore are just on another level. They combined to win nearly half of the 14 Breeders' Cup races, each of them with 3 wins apiece. And how about Flightline, right? He's the story of this year's Breeders' Cup, maybe. He accomplished something no other Breeders' Cup Classic winner has in the 39-year history of the race, winning by a record margin of 8 1/4 lengths. But as special as that performance was, it really doesn't compare to what we witnessed with Cody's Wish in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, at least not for me anyway. The story surrounding Cody's Wish and his namesake, 16-year-old Cody Dorman, should be on the radar of every movie producer in the world. And the images of Cody Dorman in the winner's circle, having the gold and purple garland placed in his lap as he sat in his wheelchair with tears running down his face, are incredibly moving. You're going to hear from Jockey Junior Alvarado, who's going to be with me to take a look back on that race and share his feelings about that moment, not just from a jockey's perspective, but from a parent's perspective. He'll be with me in just a few minutes after my first commercial break, right around 8, 12, or 13 Eastern Time. You're also going to hear from owner Mike Repole, following Forte's win in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and trainer Todd Pletcher, who was joined by Shadwell's Gregory Clark after Malathot's thrilling victory in the distaff. All of those individuals took time for the post-race press conference that Breeders' Cup put together. You're going to hear from them coming up in just a little bit as well, right around 8:35 Eastern Time. Trainer John Sadler joined me for an extended visit on my Trainer Talk show this past Wednesday. You're going to hear from John coming up later in this program, around 9:40. I took an excerpt from that conversation from Trainer Talk, and I'm going to play it for you here this morning in case you missed it. John, obviously over the moon, but one of the things I love about talking with trainers after a big win like this, whether it be the Kentucky Derby or a race in the Breeders' Cup or the Preakness, the Belmont, whatever it is, an iconic win in their career, the next day they're right back at the barn, right back to work. There's more horses to train. And John told me that. I said, "Are you still on cloud 9?" And John said, "Well, I'm back here working in California." That's the job of a horse trainer. But you'll hear from John at 9:40 Eastern Time. I'm also going to be joined by National HBPA CEO Eric Hamelback to look ahead to the Claiming Crown coming up at Churchill. The first time the event will be held at Churchill Downs. Should be a special afternoon, and Eric will tell you all about that in the second hour of today's program. Plus, Unsung Heroes, presented by Woodbine Entertainment, the TwinSpires Triple Play, Kurt Beckers Stroll Through Racing History, presented by Keeneland, and I Ask, They Answer with trainer Dale Romans and turf writer Tim Wilkin. I'll have some Breeders' Cup topics for them, and I will throw a few other things at them, too, this morning. Poll question. You can go to @HRRN on Twitter, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook to let me know your thoughts. And if you don't do the social media thing, no big deal. Simply email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net, and let me know what was your favorite moment of the 2022 Breeders' Cup. Give you a few choices. Flightline winning the Classic, Cody's Wish in the Dirt Mile, Malathot in the Distaff. I thought that finish was ultra thrilling. Or other. And if you choose other, specify. Let me know what other moment outside of those three choices you found to be your favorite, your personal favorite moment of the 2022 Breeders' Cup. Again, @HRN on Twitter, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook, or email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net. All right, it is going to be a very busy program here this morning. Junior Alvarado kicking things off in just a few minutes. You'll hear from Mike Repole and Todd Pletcher coming up later in the first hour of the program. Eric Hamelback, 9 o'clock Eastern, 9:20. Unsung Heroes presented by Woodbine Entertainment, and John Sadler at 9:40 before we kick things off in Hour 3 with the TwinSpires Triple Play. Kurt Stroll Through Racing History, and I Ask, They Answer with Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin to wrap things up right around 10:30 Eastern Time. There's an awful lot to get to here this morning. Looking back on the Breeders' Cup, looking ahead to the Claiming Crown. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Life is good. 9 wins from 11 career starts, including 4 Grade 1s. WinStar President and CEO Elliott Walden knows he's special.
You know, to have a horse of this caliber, it's always exciting. There's not many horses that I've been around that have his ability. You know, he just breathes a different air.
They're coming past the 16th fold. It's Life is Good. And this colt is
is incredible. Life is Good is looking good. Life is Good and Irad Ortiz Jr. They ran him off their feet in the Pegasus.
And they're coming for the finish. It is Life is Good still in front. Life is Good is the winner by 2 lengths. Life is Good the leader with a 16th to the finish. And Life is Good is going to win this Woodward. Life is Good by a length and a half at the end.
Life is Good, the fastest son of Into Mischief, coming to WinStar.
The thrill of world-class racing continues at Toronto's Woodbine Racetrack. Kick off the weekend's action with Twilight Racing each Thursday evening at 4:50 p.m. Eastern, followed Friday, Saturday, and Sunday programs beginning at 1:10 p.m. Eastern. With racing now through December 11th and plenty of weekend stakes, you are not going to want to miss the action at Woodbine. For wagering updates, handicapping tips, racing news, and more, visit woodbine.com. That's woodbine.com.
Consider the advantage of owning a Maryland bred and run for 30% more in Maryland. With a lucrative 15% owner bonus and a 15% developer bonus on all open overnight races for Maryland breds finishing first, second, or third, it pays to race in Maryland. Learn more about all the advantages of breeding and owning Maryland breds at MarylandThoroughbred.com. Look for Maryland breds at the upcoming fall sales and be part of the Maryland success story.
This is Bob Baffert, and you're listening to the Horse Racing Radio Network.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Quarter mile to go. Cody's Wish keeps moving to the outside. Gunite has the lead. Pipeline's dropping back through the field. It is Gunite with the advantage off the turn to Cody's Wish. Cyberknife between that pair. Slow down Andy is in fourth. Cyberknife, Cody's Wish, and Cody's Wish has a narrow lead. Cyberknife is right there to the inside. Slow down Andy coming late from third. Cyberknife fighting back. Cody's Wish right alongside. Down to the wire. Cody's Wish wins it for Junior Alvarado.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch. Happy to have you back with me as we look back on the 2022 Breeders' Cup. And I don't know if any moment was more special than what we saw in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile with Cody's Wish getting up for the victory. You just heard Kurt Becker with the call. That's the way it sounded during our radio broadcast of the race on Saturday afternoon. And that is music to the ears of my special guest, Junior Alvarado, the man who was aboard Cody's Wish. He got his head to the wire first. Somehow, some way, it just seemed as if Cody's Wish was not going to be denied on that Saturday afternoon. And Junior is with me now. Junior, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Mike. Thank you. Thank you so much again for having me in your program. And like we just talked a couple minutes ago, I'm still in cloud nine about all this, winning my first Breeders' Cup, and how especially just being not only for me, for the Dorman family, just been still an unbelievable story. And like I said, I'm still in my weed right here.
You have been one of the top jockeys in the sport for a long time, Junior, and maybe one of the more underrated riders in the sport, and that you've had to wait a long time for this first Breeders' Cup win. To get it with Cody's Wish, with everything else that was going on with the horse, with Cody Dorman, the young boy who Cody's Wish is named for. Boy, I can't imagine that anything could be more special for you.
Yes, for sure. I was talking with my wife just about that, and I was saying, it took a long time for me to get my first Breeders' Cup, but I wouldn't change. I wouldn't trade this win that I have with this special horse for any other Breeders' Cup. It was just an unbelievable just to be part of the story. It's just it's amazing, and I'm just really, really glad to be part of it.
Yeah, the story is simply remarkable, and we had a chance to visit with Cody Dorman and with his parents for our coverage on Saturday afternoon, and to hear them and the genuine emotion when they talk about the horse and what the horse has meant to their son. And I know NBC did a wonderful piece on it for the television show too, and just everybody has really gravitated toward this story because of the human element of it, and it was so special. Were you at any point, Junior, aware of that as you're coming down the stretch and you're thinking, man, I just have to find a way to get there?
Yeah, I've been reading other Breeders' Cup before, and we all get, our little, also, I don't gonna say we get nervous, but we get kind of like a little between an excitement and a little, nervousness, I guess. Just right in the Breeders' Cup, you want to make sure you do good. You don't want to have a, like I say, you don't want to do a bad ride and cost you the Breeders' Cup. But yeah, I have put myself a little bit of pressure in this one because, I did wanted it maybe more bad for them than for myself. I wanted to win this race so bad just to keep the story going. And like I say, but, when we turned from home, I knew I had a good chance. And right when my horse reached to the right, I could feel the aggression. I could feel the determination and how bad he wanted it. So I'm like, it's a lot of things going through my mind at that time, trying to keep helping and moving forward to try to win the race. But I could feel it. I could feel that the horse wanted it maybe as bad or maybe more bad than me at that moment. And believe me, when I passed the wire, you just like those emotions they just went through my mind, just knowing what I did to keep this beautiful story going. You just amazing.
I know it means the world to you professionally as a jockey, but you're a wonderful family man. You have the young children at home. So as a parent, what did that win mean for you?
No, like I say, it's this win, I wouldn't trade it for anything. And like I said, just being so special for what it's, the relation that this horse has with Cody Dorman. He helps me actually to teach my kids and show them that we have to have, appreciation for all we have. We have we actually have everything we need. We don't need anything more. We need to just have more appreciation for all we have. And like I said, it teaches a lot just what's happening with the world. That sometimes, like I said, we're just ungrateful sometimes, and we should just be more appreciative of things and everything we have.
You told me when we were off air before we started the conversation that you have gone back and watched the replay of the race several times. How many times do you think you've watched it?
Until right now, probably maybe around 15 to 20 times. Yeah. The whole, not only the race. I've been watching the race with the story included, with Cody Dorman's story included, like the whole thing. It just melts your heart. It's a lovely story to keep watching over and over. It doesn't get all, like every time I watch it, you get those goosebumps. You get, teary eyes. It's just beautiful to watch.
He was far back early on in the race. Was it the trip that you expected to get?
No, that wasn't the trip. We were thinking, we were going to be laying third, fourth, but his horse is being a little difficult in the gate. Every time he loads, he become like a beast in the gate, And what happened, we load him in the gate. He start acting up right away. Then he stopped. By the time he stopped, he's been standing good. But the guy in the gate don't want to mess up with him. Then, so I said, I'm going to leave him alone. Then, when there was only two horses left to go into the gate, I told the guy who's holding my horse, like, we need to fix him. And he's not standing good. And then he looked at me and was like, you want me to move him? Like, pretty much telling me, like, you want me to take the chance to move him and maybe we're going to lose him. And, I'm thinking at the same time, I cannot raise him being that aggressive at the gate because something happened that they will scratch him right away because, it's a big day. They're not taking, they're not giving too much chances to any horses. So if he does something like that, they were going to scratch. So at that time, I just remember just saying like, well, hopefully, God, please help me. Please don't let him stumble at the break. And after that, I'll take it from there. And that's how it was. He broke a little, flat-footed out of the gate just because he wasn't standing great. Then, but coming to the first turn, I knew it. They were going very fast. So I didn't get too worried to move too soon. I knew they were going to eventually start backing up to me. And I just say, just because the pace, it helps out. I was a little far, but it helped me there to keep getting position little by little without rushing too much.
As I was watching the stretch run from our position up above the finish line, I saw Cyberknife in front, and I know from covering his races over the past several months that Cyberknife is not a horse that's going to back down from a fight. And as Cody's Wish is making his run, I knew you had your hands full because Cyberknife was going to be a tough customer in front.
Yes, I was very aware of that, but that's why when I turned from home, I kind of stayed in my lane. You know, I tried to stay like in the fifth, sixth lane in the outside, but my horse is a fighter too. I remember winning a race in Churchill Down when a horse came right to him. You know, he fell back and put his head in front. And I could feel, you know, right when I turned from home, you know, that I have more under me, but he didn't want to give it to me. And then what I did, we just started like slowly coming down and like I said, putting it in a fight mode right there. And you know, I knew it was going to be a battle because Cyberknife is a horse that they have a lot of races where he's been a head-to-head and most of the time ended up in the winning side. But I had to just trust my horse at that time. I knew he had a big determination to win that race, and you know, he had it done for me right there.
Talking with Jockey Junior Alvarado here on the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires, looking back on Junior's first win in a Breeders' Cup race, and it comes at a very special moment with a very special horse in Cody's Wish. Let's talk about a race you didn't win, but you were best of the rest, if you will, behind the brilliant Flightline, who wins the Breeders' Cup Classic by 8 1/4 lengths. That is a record margin in the 39-year history of the Breeders' Cup Classic. Olympiad ends up second behind him at odds of 26-1. I could not believe that Olympiad was not getting more respect from the bettors, considering the campaign that he had this year.
Yes, that's what it was. I like we just talked a little bit before we started the interview. For me, I think that was one of his best race he ever run, and we still would just finish second by 8 lanes behind Flightline. You know, a horse that I've never seen something like that. You know, that horse is just an unbelievable race horse. He got something else that I haven't seen in any other horse. The way he runs, the way he moves, he's just an unbelievable. But, you know, my horse run a great race. I just remember passing the wire, you know, like screaming at my horse, you know, like congratulating him. I was petting him, and the way back after the race, you know, I keep petting him. And, you know, I was very happy the way he was kind of reacting to me when I was petting him and talking to him. He kind of like thought that we won the race, the way he was coming back. He was coming back very happy with his head very high, like very proud of himself. You know, he actually give me a lot of joy for not having winning that race, but making sure that he was understanding that I was very proud of what he did for me in that race. You know, he brought tears to my ears, to my eyes when I was about to jump off of him.
Yeah, nobody was going to beat Flightline. As you said, he's at a different level, and you know, Olympiad certainly deserved a little bit more credit, I think, than he was getting from the bettors going into this race. And like you said, he ran probably the best race he has run this entire year, and that's saying a lot, considering that he already had 6 wins from 7 starts coming into the Breeders' Cup, and he ran the best race, but he ends up 8 1/4 lengths behind Flightline. John Velasquez, after the race, joined us on our coverage, and he just went on and on about how good Flightline really is. Did you get the same sense too, Junior, as you were trying to come up with some way to stay close to him?
Yes, I just, you know, what part that I remember that I was that all of a sudden, you know, I got very excited was when we were by the 3/4 pole, when we turned the backside and we just passed the 3/4 pole. Like, I felt my horse. You know, normally my horse is easy horse to know how fast he's going. Like, I can pace my horse. I know when he's going in 47, when he's going in 48. And I could feel he's going fast. He's going like around 47 and change, close to 48. And I'm like 16, 17 lanes behind the Life is Good and Flightline. So I'm thinking like, they're going to stop. I mean, there is no way. I mean, it is impossible for not a horse. I mean, doesn't matter how good you are, you will have to stop with this kind of pace you're going. So like I said, at that point, I'm just trying to be focused, trying to not rush myself, trying to don't get too excited, trying to just remember that they will come back to me and try to beat these horses that were around me, because I thought we were going to be we was going to be just between us, because I thought those horses were going to come back. And, I mean, eventually, Life is Good, which is an unbelievable horse. He had an unbelievable year. A horse didn't have nothing to prove, like a very extraordinary horse. He backed up like he should. But the other animal, I mean, I just couldn't understand. You know, when I turned for home and I just saw him keep drawing away, I was like, I mean, I just couldn't believe. You know, at that point, I just keep riding because I knew a second would be an amazing second for us. But, like, while going through my mind, like, I was still in disbelief. Like, how this horse just keep running and not stopping? Like, I mean, like I said, I have no word. I just couldn't believe that was still happening, that the horse still was going forward after those crazy pace that he was going to.
Yeah, everybody had that same opinion. That's exactly what Johnny said after the race, too. He was waiting for them to come back to him, and it never happened. He just drew off and continued to widen through the stretch, and then won under wraps, which is, you know, really incredible. But I loved your story about Olympiad and how much that meant to you, and I love the way that you let the horse know, hey, you did great today, buddy. This was awesome.
Yes, exactly. I had a great year with this horse. You know, he's been very kind to me, and you know, and to be honest, you know, anyone could have ridden this horse would have the same results. You know, I didn't think that I did anything special. He's a very easy horse to ride, and like I say, he's been very kind to me and to my family this year, and the least that I could do is let him know that he did a fantastic job, that he did what I asked him to do, and that he was there for me. And like I said, I was just very happy to know that he knew that I was giving him appreciation. And like I said, he was very happy to know that too.
Well, Junior, you're closing in on 2,000 career wins, and it won't take you long to get to that mark. I know you'll be there, maybe even by the end of the year. Who knows? But I'm curious, what do you do for an encore now? You've had one of the best seasons in the history of your career. How do you top this one?
It's very difficult. Trying already just to imagine, because I know they're probably gonna. They were talking about maybe retiring Olympia, and knowing how long it took me to find a horse like him, you know, and just like, you know, I had to go again and go in the hunt, trying to find this good horse and keep working hard. It's something that I have never stopped since I came here to the United States. You know, I have to keep working hard, and I just think, you know, eventually working hard will pay off and it will come.
Well, Junior, as good of a rider as you are an even better person. And I really appreciate the conversation here this morning. And congratulations again. It couldn't happen to a better guy. I'm glad you finally got your moment in the sun, and I know that this is just the beginning of many big moments to come, my friend. So keep it rolling. Good luck, and let's go get that 2,000th career win, too.
Yes, thank you very much, Mike. Again, thank you for having me on your program, and you know, and have a blessed day to everyone.
All right, you too, my friend. Junior Alvarado here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Great guy. What a story. Couldn't be happier for him and for his family and for the family of Cody's Wish, and that entire story, which has now been well told, well documented, and it's just such a fantastic story. And Junior, as you heard him say, just happy to be a part of it. When I come back, you're going to hear from owner Mike Repole, you're going to hear from trainer Todd Pletcher, and from Gregory Clark from Shadwell as we look back on Forte's win in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile and Malathot in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. That's in the next segment, right after your Legends of the Turf.
The story of this great thoroughbred might easily fit the needed scenario for a 5-star bit of Hollywood magic. All the necessary ingredients are indeed there. In the summer of 1940, because of protracted German bombing of the British Isles, the British Bloodstock Agency offered for sale 5 stallions to American interests. Mr. C.V. Whitney purchased one who had won the Epsom Derby in record time. The contemporaries of the time cast a rather jaundiced eye, so to speak, on the purchase, in that the horse was considered to be essentially a sprinter with little consequent, at least apparently, chance of upgrading American breeding strains. The fact is, the 7-year-old gray very nearly never made it to America at all. Now, that in itself is a fascinating story which bears retelling. He was transported to America by ship, or at least was supposed to be, and accordingly installed in a crate and hoisted aboard a vessel which was part of a convoy headed across the Atlantic. Soon after sailing, the captain of the freighter discovered the horse's bill of lading, and, as his manifest forbade him from taking on livestock, the horse was returned to the dock. That, as it turned out, was a providential stroke of good fortune. You see, that particular vessel was torpedoed by a German U-boat and went to a watery grave at the bottom of the briny deep with nary a trace of a survivor. A subsequent freighter brought the equine specimen to American shores. At the New York dock assignated as the debarkation point, there was no horse unloading equipment, so it was decided to take him off the ship via a long and treacherously steep passenger gangplank. Well, he stood at the top, pensively surveying the scene, and waited, filled with curiosity, steadfastly refusing debarkation. Straw was used to line the gangplank, and he was fed hay, all to no avail. Eventually, he was enticed down with sugar. Curiously enough, many of this stallion's get demonstrated that self-same temperament which was displayed at the New York dock in that year of 1940. When one of our subject stallion's daughter's first flight with a crafty veteran reinsman Eddie Arcaro in the irons came out onto the racetrack for the 1946 Futurity, she stopped for an extended time in front of the stands, not acting up, mind you, just looking up and down the track until her curiosity was fully satisfied. She then went calmly, quietly, and professionally to the starting gate and promptly galloped off to an impressive score over the very best colts the East could offer by way of opposition. In the breeding shed, this stud was awesome, and the reason was really quite simple. He had 5 characteristics that were of paramount importance in passing on to new foals: soundness, speed, conformation, fertility, and something that cannot be seen or measured, his natural intelligence and temperament, which made his progeny very easy to handle. He was in his prime in the breeding shed, the unequivocal, undisputedly foremost broodmare sire in the world. All told, he begat 68 stakes winners and was North America's leading sire in 1946, and he was a leading sire for 14 straight years. That marvelous gray stallion knew and appreciated human affection and yet did not exploit it. He was never too busy to stroll to his paddock fence for an endearing pat. He was kind, gentle, and uncomplicated. His nickname was Toby, but this great stallion, whose name is indelibly etched in the now yellowing pages of American racing history, was Mahmoud.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Family run since 2001, Mulholland Springs has established a reputation for raising, selling, and racing top-class horses with a high level of individual care and attention to detail for each horse.
Pony Express wins the Clark.
Never retreats, takes the First Lady.
It's Malibu Mint, and they take the Grade 1 Princess Rooney.
And Tell Me No Lies has won the Chandelier, and Cave Rock to win by almost 6 lengths in the American Pharoah.
Visit us at mulhollensprings.com.
What better way to spend Thanksgiving weekend than at Laurel Park Racetrack? Grab your friends and family and come join us on Friday, November 25th and Saturday, November 26th for 5 exciting stakes races worth $450,000 in prize money. Thanksgiving weekend will feature elevated dining options in Tips and Tycoons, plus a specially curated steaks buffet. You will not want to miss out on all the action. Learn more today at laurelpark.com and come join us for Thanksgiving weekend stakes racing.
This is Jockey Junior Alvarado, and you're listening to HRRN.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
But they're coming to the top of the short stretch, and here comes Forte. Cave Rock has the lead. National Treasure between horses. Forte, and then Blazing Sevens goes to 4th on the grandstand side. Forte takes clear aim at Cave Rock. These two going at it, final furlong of the Juvenile. Forte on the outside, Cave Rock on the inside. Forte to the lead. Forte, Iran Ortiz Jr. to win the FanDuel Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Clarier to the rail, Malathat to the outside. Blue Stripe has the lead. Malathat, Clarier moves up the rail, but still third. Blue Stripe, Clarier, Malathat. Clarier trying, Blue Stripe in front. Malathat is there. Blue Stripe, Clarier, Malathat. Malathat, maybe. What a finish.
Kurt Becker with the calls. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile going to Forte, Malathot taking the Breeders' Cup Distaff, and that thrilling finish. Great job by Kurt, and great job by all the connections involved with those two winners on Breeders' Cup Friday and Breeders' Cup Saturday, respectively. Mike Repole, the owner of Forte, Todd Pletcher, the trainer of Forte, and of course of Malathot as well. They have had some big days together. They are very, very close friends, and Mike Repole took time after that win by Forte to meet the media. He was asked if he thought maybe he had an advantage coming off of a win over the track, and here's what he had to say.
I think it's one of the reasons why we ran here instead of there. Not only did it give him an advantage, the way the race played out, where he was, he had to fight the whole down the wire with that horse Loggins. I think that really helped him for when he got alongside Cave Rock. Listen, Cave Rock's numbers are incredible. But one thing we saw was all West Coast races. First time he's really shipping across, halfway through the country. And then I would also say, Bafford's amazing trainer, but he has 4 horses out of 7 in the race. Okay, you go first, you go second, you go third. It's like kind of, they don't go 4 across the track. So whoever owns that one, I thought he would go since he was coming out of 2 6-furlong races. He was 70-1. I should buy that guy dinner tonight. So,
Mike, Forte means strength, and that colt certainly showed it in abundance today. To pick up the way he did, is that I'm not familiar with him. I'm English, but is that his racing style?
Todd, when he part of the team picked him out, and Todd was very involved. He looks like Violence, big horse, and Vinny and I and Teresa have had some good luck with some Italian names like Vino Rosso. He did okay. And Forte meeting strong. And, I got my little pod of cup espresso says Forte. It's the Forte brand. So I have that too. So I'm going to have one of these right after the race. And, but yeah, strong. And it's just just a strong word, Forte. And it's a great name, but when it's given to a great horse, it becomes a great name. You've had enough of the press, seriously. That's the stop. Thank you. All right. But you have to go there. You can't talk.
Okay, quickly, so we can let them go get some champagne.
Mike, the fractions were remarkably similar to the last race here, other than the half, but I think the quarter and 3/4 were the same. Did you see similarities in the way the race was run beyond just the clock?
If you look at the first couple races on the dirt, you would think it was just speed favoring. And I don't know what they did when they went to turf. I don't know if they went over it, whatever, but the way the horse that won the race actually was on the lead wire to wire, came from way back. But she did stay on the rail the whole time. Irad knew that the 1 and the 3 would probably go out, and he was going to get to the rail. He got to the rail, looked like he wanted to get out earlier, and he couldn't. But, Forte did that last time, and again, that's where Irad is Irad. Some jockeys would just try to make a 6-wide move, and he's going to sit there. But you know what? The horse has to let him sit there, and the experience that he got in the Sanford when he got behind horses and couldn't get through, the hopeful when he came up the rail, and his last race here where he kind of went 4 wide, this horse has been winning in, honestly, 1.25 mile performance, and it looks like he's just going to get better and better and better.
Where do you go from here?
2-year-old championships, Eclipse Awards, Palm Beach, wherever they're having it this year. And, listen, it started here for me, 12 years ago. I won a little race here called the Breeders' Cup with Juvenile with Uncle Mo, and I think that's the first time people heard of Repole Stable. And, I love racing, and I used to bring my grandmother to the track. She passed away about 2.5 years ago, and she used to always have the Repole Stable hat and come down to the winner's circle. And she passed away about 2 years ago, and 7 years ago I got this, what's your name again? Joya. I got my daughter Joya, and now, my grandmother had a big personality, and I think I have a little bit of a big personality, but she's right behind both of us. I wanted to grow my wife's personality. I only got half of it, but now to have, kind of goes full circle from Uncle Mo to Forte to my 93-year-old grandmother who passed away to my 7-year-old daughter Joya. So, listen, it's been, I don't even know. It's hard for me to express like what since the Belmont Stakes, what's happening. I mean, my whole family thinks you just show up and you win a Grade 1 and that's normal. I mean, I think it's 8 Grade 1 since June. I mean, people don't win 8 Grade 1s in their lifetime. People don't win 8 Grade 1s ever, and it's just, I'm not fooled about how blessed I am that this is happening, and I don't see how this could ever happen again. I'm just being honest with you, even though I did buy 100 yearlings, but that's another story.
Well, congratulations, Forte winners of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Congratulations, Mike Repole, St. Elias Stables, and all the connections. Always
so much fun to hear from Mike Repole. He just loves the game, loves the sport, and you heard him say he just bought 100 yearlings. You're going to hear a lot more from Mike Repole down the road, as you will from Todd Pletcher, who joined the podium later in the afternoon after Malathot's thrilling win in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. He started by talking about why he felt Saturday could be her day.
Well, she's always given us confidence. She's a lovely filly from day one, and I thought she was training super coming into the race. She obviously likes Keeneland now. She's 4-for-4 here, and she was giving us every indication that she was going to show up and run her A race like she almost always does.
And then in the running of the race, I know Nest was a little further back than would have been anticipated. They were kind of running next to each other, but Johnny giving her a real ground-saving trip kind of on both turns before finally getting her clear. That big stride of hers, is that kind of the best case scenario for her?
Yeah, she can be a little tricky. She needs a little while to get revved up, and you can't make the lead too soon with her. But I told Johnny that's timing it a little too close for my liking. But no, I mean, I could see she had a head of steam built up, and she was motoring down the middle of the track, and I was just hoping she had enough time to get there.
And you put blinkers on her a few starts back. As you mentioned, she's always run a race, never been worse than second. But what made you make that decision kind of later on now in the race career?
It's something that we've actually been thinking of since her 2-year-old year, because she's a very curious filly. She sees everything, and she has that tendency to wait when she makes the lead. Meanwhile, she's reeling off win after win after win, and you're like, it's difficult to make an equipment change. But really the defining moment was in the Ogden Phipps when Johnny came back and he said, and it was hard to really make out watching it. I guess he sensed it being on her back, that just before the wire she saw something and just kind of tapped on the brakes and got beat a nose. And he said, I think, we got to do it. And so we did. And, the first start didn't work out, but that was a tricky day at Saratoga. It was wicked hot, and I've never seen her behave that way in the paddock. And I think she was just bothered by the hot weather. She was very irritated, and she didn't run a race that day at all. But we were confident enough that we were making the right decision, that we stayed with the equipment change.
Gregory Clark representing Shadwell Stable. This filly, obviously last year's champion, an incredible year she's had this year. What do we look forward to from Malathot?
Wouldn't it be lovely if she stayed in training?
I don't think the guy next to you would argue.
No, he'd love that. But, I mean, what she's accomplished is just incredible. And we're just so blessed that, we've gotten this far with her. But she's at her top of her game, We'll see what Sheikha Hissa and the family want to do, but she's a machine. She really is. So we're over the moon.
And that incredible pedigree that she has, of course.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, she's going to be an incredible broodmare for Sheikha Hissa and the family. There's no question.
Todd, and just for both of you, as the three were coming down the stretch, did you think you had won when they crossed the wire?
To be honest, where I was positioned, I thought we won. And then every time I watched the replay, it seemed like it got closer and closer and closer. So, the cameraman was focused on her on the gallop out, and usually they're right. So, I mean, I thought she had won, but I wasn't 1,000,000% sure.
I was very weary. I thought, just like Todd said, I thought she had won, but then they kept on replaying it, and I was like, oh my gosh. But no, it was great.
And one last one from me, Todd. Is it a little bittersweet with Nest finishing fourth? I mean, you had two of the two from a lot of people's standpoint in this race, and one of them was going to have to lose.
Yeah, I mean, that's the situation you're in when you run more than one horse in a race. So, nothing worked out well for Ness today. She didn't jump well from the start. She was spinning her wheels around the first turn, and she was very wide all the way around. And because she wasn't really in the position we wanted to be, IRAD had to make a little bit of a move sooner than he wanted to, and very wide while doing it. It just, I was concerned when they hit the first turn that it wasn't going her way today.
What did Johnny say to you after the race?
He was very excited, obviously, and I was just kidding him. I said, don't cut those so close. I'm too old for those type of finishes these days. And but he showed why he's one of the greatest of all time. He's a big time performer on when it's the biggest prize. He shows up with a brilliant ride.
Well, congratulations, Shadwell Stable, Todd Pletcher, John Velazquez, and Malathat, the Breeders' Cup Distaff.
Thank you.
Jill Byrne handling the press conference hosting duties, doing a great job there. And you heard from Todd Pletcher talking about that huge win for Malathat as she now heads off to the next career as a broodmare. When I come back, I'll get you ready for hour number 2. It is loaded with more content, as is hour 3. I'll tell you all about it next. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
What is it about Tony's Steaks and Seafood that makes it such an incredible dining experience? Well, it could be the steaks. One reviewer said, "This is steak nirvana." Or how about the great seafood, the incredible atmosphere and service that's unmatched anywhere? All of those things. It's Tony's of Lexington on Main Street, right across from Triangle Park. Come in and become part of Tony's family.
Woodford Feed, where tradition merges with technology. Family owned since 1940 and providing exceptional customer service, Woodford Feed specializes in the highest quality feed, using only the finest ingredients to ensure optimal nutrition for your horses. In addition, Woodford Feed can help with all your farm needs, including field seed, fertilizer, and weed control. So whether your horse is sprinting around the racetrack or has a foal by her side, count on Woodford Feed to provide the quality nutrition necessary to perform at the highest level. Woodford Feed for Sales, Kentucky.
Racing fans, don't miss Breeders' Cup Classic Day this Saturday at spectacular Santa Anita. Admission gates open early for simulcast wagering on a tremendous undercard from Keeneland at 7 a.m. and first live race post time at Santa Anita is at 12:30. Can John Sadler's mighty Flightline remain unbeaten and win the $6 million Classic? Don't miss a minute of the action and experience a day you'll never forget right here at Santa Anita. Post time for the Breeders' Cup Classic is at 2:40 Pacific time. Closing day for our current 18-day autumn meet is Sunday, and please note, with the switch back to Pacific Standard Time, we will have special early first post time on Sunday at 12 noon. As always, there will be mandatory payouts in all exotic wagers, and fans, we look forward to seeing you on opening day of our traditional winter-spring meeting the day after Christmas on Monday, December 26th.
The National HBPA is continuously working to protect the health and welfare of horses by advocating and funding research to help reduce equine injuries, lobbying for a national testing lab to oversee and establish absolute uniform laboratory protocols, advocating for every track to undergo an annual independent surface assessment, passionately supporting off-the-track thoroughbred retirement facilities and adoption groups, and so much more. See additional HBPA initiatives at nationalhbpa.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Now off the fence to the outside. Candy Raid from last is locked and loaded. Top of the home stretch, 3/4, 111-4, and they lean into the lane in the Bourbonette Oaks with a wide, sweeping, sustained bid. Here comes Candy Raid at a big number. Katish is on the wrong lead, racing erratically down the center of the course. Here comes North County, who's full of run, but Candy Raid with a 16th to go has blown it open. Candy Raid impressive, bombs away in the Bourbonette. Candy Raid won by open lengths. There is a 3-way photo per second. The Bourbonette Oaks goes to Candy Raid. Don't Tell My Wife Stable keeps the Sorbo and Rafael Villarado in 142-4.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on this Saturday morning. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, walking you through a look back at the 2022 Breeders' Cup World Championships and a look ahead to the Claiming Crown coming up later today at Churchill Downs. And that call at Turfway Park, the Bourbonnette Oaks going to Candy Raid, the daughter of Candy Ride, who is going to be going as one of the horses to watch in today's Tierra, one of several Claiming Crown races on the program, going to Churchill Downs for the very first time in the history of that event. And it is the Breeders' Cup for blue-collar horses, so I guess it makes sense that it would follow the Breeders' Cup World Championships 1 week later. Should be a lot of fun. I'm going to visit with Eric Hamelback, who is the CEO of the National HBPA, coming up here momentarily to kick off hour number 2. That comes your way 9 o'clock Eastern Time. Also going to visit with Trainer John Sadler. You're going to hear from him coming up at 9:40. And sandwiched in between those two interviews, I will bring you Unsung Heroes, presented by Woodbine Entertainment. That is all before I get to hour number 3 at 10 a.m. Eastern, which begins with this week's TwinSpires Triple Play. Going to be joined by the Pontiff of the Pick 4, Jude Feld, who is going to sub for some of the TwinSpires handicappers you've become accustomed to hearing over the past few months. The Pontiff will pick 3 races, all on the Claiming Crown program today, that you can go over to TwinSpires.com and wager on before those races open, or even as we make our way through the afternoon at Churchill later today. Kurt Becker will have his weekly Stroll Through Racing history story at 10:20, and at 10:30, I ask, they answer. Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin will both be with me to wrap up the program, and I will throw some Breeders' Cup content at them and a couple of other topics that they're not expecting. Should be a lot of fun at 10:30. Okay, so one of the things that was talked about somewhat, we talked about it a couple of times here on the show. I think I may have mentioned it on this program last Saturday as well. One of the things, other than Flightline, that was up for grabs, if you will, in the Breeders' Cup Classic this year was the 3-year-old championship. And it's not an easy decision for voters. I have a vote, and as I sat down and looked at the resumes of the 4 3-year-olds that are really going to be in that conversation, it became apparent that it was really difficult to separate their campaigns. And I'm talking about Rich Strike, the Derby winner, Epicenter, Cyberknife, and Taba. Those are the 4. With all due respect to Preakness winner Early Voting and Belmont winner Mo Donegal, they really don't have a dog in this fight. So, in a wide open year with the 3-year-olds, I thought, why not dive in and do a deep dive on what they've accomplished here in 2022. Rich Strike, let's start with him. He's the Derby winner. 1 Grade 1 win on his resume this year. That was the Kentucky Derby. But in that race, he defeated Epicenter, Cyberknife, and Taba, the other horses who are likely to be in consideration with him for that 3-year-old championship honor. Epicenter, like Rich Strike, also has 1 Grade 1 win. That came in the Travers at Saratoga, a race in which he defeated Rich Strike and Cyberknife. Taba wasn't in that race. Cyberknife was 2nd, Rich Strike was 4th. Cyberknife has 2 Grade 1s. The Arkansas Derby and the Haskell. And in the Haskell, he defeated Taba. Rich Strike, Epicenter, they didn't run in that race. Taba also has 2 Grade 1 wins. He won the Santa Anita Derby, you remember, so impressively, and then came back and took the Pennsylvania Derby, a race in which he turned the tables on Cyberknife. So I guess you have to take a look at what those runners did in the Breeders' Cup. Cyberknife was a head away from winning the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. There are people, including Dale and Tim, if you listen to last week's edition of I Ask, They Answer, they downgraded Cyberknife's chances to be 3-year-old champion because of the fact that he chose to go in the Dirt Mile, or his connections chose. I don't think Cyberknife had much of a say. His connections chose to go in the Dirt Mile over the horses in the Breeders' Cup Classic. I think Cyberknife would have been a player in the Breeders' Cup Classic. I'm not saying he would have beat Flightline. Nobody was beating Flightline. But I think he could have been second. Cyberknife a head away from winning the Dirt Mile. That's impressive. And he was beaten by a red-hot horse in Cody's Wish. Taba finishes third in the Breeders' Cup Classic, 2.5 lengths clear of Derby winner Rich Strike in fourth. And as we know, Epicenter injured in that race, which obviously hurts his chances of stating a case to be 3-year-old champion. So when you look at these resumes, it comes down to how much emphasis are you going to put, number one, on the Kentucky Derby in a year where it was wide open, and how much emphasis are you going to give to multiple Grade 1 wins during a campaign, like Cyberknife and Taba both had? I think that's really the question. Do 2 Grade 1 wins equal or surpass 1 Grade 1 win in the Kentucky Derby? I think by default, simply by default, it's going to go to Rich Strike. Because we consider the Kentucky Derby the premier 3-year-old race. There's only one Kentucky Derby, right? You walk down, I've said this before, you walk down the street and somewhere in North Dakota or Montana, a place where horse racing is not prevalent, and you ask somebody about horse racing, the one race they're going to know is the Kentucky Derby. They probably aren't going to know the Breeders' Cup. They may or may not know the Preakness and the Belmont, more than likely not. But the one race, anybody who is not a fan of racing, just a casual sports fan, or just, even if you're not a sports fan, you know the Kentucky Derby. It's that important. And the best 3-year-olds in the country point for the Kentucky Derby. And this year, I think we can safely say they all made it. And Rich Strike won it. He beat them all. He beat it, 19, 20 horse field. I don't remember the exact number of horses that actually started, 18, 19, 20. And then he came back, and even though he didn't win after that Kentucky Derby, he proved that he is a legitimate racehorse. He did not embarrass himself in any of his other races. And I think just by default, simply by the fact that you won the Kentucky Derby, the sport's premier race for 3-year-olds, I think Rich Strike is going to be voted 3-year-old champion. Yes, the Belmont wasn't his race. He was 6th, but he was 4th in the Travers, 2nd beaten ahead in the Lucas Classic against the very tough Hot Rod Charlie. Older horses. And then 4th in the Breeders' Cup. So I think Rich Strike will get it. I wouldn't count out horses like Cyberknife and Taba, in particular Cyberknife. I think if he had won the Dirt Mile, to me, I would have given Cyberknife the vote. But that head defeat in that race might be enough to sway voters. I think it comes down to Rich Strike, and I think it comes down to Cyberknife, those two. But I think by default, you're going to see Rich Strike probably walk away with those championship honors when the Eclipse Awards are given out in January in South Florida. All right, I told you what's ahead in hour number 2. Hour number 3 loaded as well. Told you that. Don't forget that it is that time of year, the moment for racing fans to let their voices be heard. You can vote now in America's Best Racing's Fan Choice Awards and pick this year's best. We were just talking about this year's best 3-year-old. When you do, you'll be entered for a chance to win a trip to a Triple Crown race. Visit ABR's website today to vote and put yourself in a position to win. You'll see a link in the show notes, the podcast notes of this particular show, and it's all there for you. The 2022 Fan Choice Awards at America's Best Racing. You can go to americasbestracing.net to learn more. And a real quick note about a equine industry program, University of Louisville Equine Industry Program speaker panel coming up at Churchill Downs, Becoming an Owner. It's on, it's actually tonight, 6:30 to 7:45 at Churchill. It's in the Starting Gate Suites on the 5th floor. For info and for tickets, you can contact Kim Spear, 502-852-7727. That's 502-852-7727. Find out how you can get involved with that panel and take in that panel. It's all about becoming an owner. Some great insights there from some wonderful panelists, and you'll want to do that at Churchill Downs tonight, coming up at 6:30 Eastern Time. All right, hour 1 is in the books. 2 more to go. We'll do that next, right after I pause 10 seconds for station identification and bring you your Visit Barbados racing update.
With the racing world still basking in the glow of the Breeders' Cup, the blue-collar horses of the sport are in the spotlight in today's 8 Claiming Crown races being held for the first time at Churchill Downs. Sunday's Churchill program is highlighted by the Bet on Sunshine Stakes, Dream Supreme Stakes, and the Grade 3 River City. Opening weekend of Del Mar's fall meet includes today's $75,000 Catherine Crosby Stakes, while older fillies and mares square off in a pair of graded stakes at Woodbine, the Grade 2 Bessarabian, and the Grade 3 Maple Leaf. And that's your Visit Barbados Racing Update, brought to you by Barbados Tourism. Learn more at visitbarbados.org.
If you've been waiting to discover that sweet spot where peace of mind meets the time of your life, then it sounds like you've been waiting on Barbados. You've been waiting to experience a meal that makes you book a flight to have it again. You've been waiting for adventure in the sun, from the majesty of horse racing and polo to the thrill of surfing our playful waves. From the moment you set foot on the island, you'll realize Barbados is exactly what you've been waiting for. Visit jetblue.com/Barbados for special vacation packages.
This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
Welcome back. Hour 2 of the Equine Forum, post-Breeders' Competition, continuing to look back on what took place at Keeneland last weekend and look ahead to what's coming up at Churchill later today with the Claiming Crown. And I'm going to do that momentarily with Eric Hamelback, who is the CEO of the National HBPA. But first, I want to remind you, if you did miss any portion of the first hour of the program or any of our shows, you know what to do. Head back to our website, horseracingradio.net. You can listen to the podcast at your leisure. You can also do that on every major podcast platform. And that first hour of the show, boy, what a fun visit with Jockey Junior Alvarado, talking about Cody's wish and what that meant to him and to him, not just as a jockey, but as a parent. What a great story there, and to hear him explain it was really cool. And then to talk about Olympiad and the way that when he came back to the Be Unsaddled, the way he was telling Olympiad, you did good, buddy. You did good. He knew he wasn't going to beat Flightline. He knew he had no chance, but he was so proud of Olympiad for giving his best effort and ending up second in that classic. Really cool stuff. That's one interview you can go back and listen to. And, of course, the comments from Mike Repole and Todd Pletcher talking about Forte and Malathot, who both put in exceptional efforts on what was a really special Breeders' Cup. Poll question here today. What was your favorite moment of the 2022 Breeders' Cup? And we gave you a few choices. Flightline winning the Classic, Cody's Wish in the Dirt Mile, Malathot in the Distaff, or other. And if you choose other, specify, let me know what other moment other than those three stood out to you at this year's Breeders' Cup. All right, without further ado, I do welcome in Eric Hamelback. And Eric, I'm going to start with that one with you too, my friend. I didn't tell you I was going to do it, but I'm going to hit you up with it. What was your favorite moment of the Breeders' Cup?
Absolutely. I'm going to go back right to the Cody's Wish. That to me was, I mean, I'm talking about it now and I'm getting goosebumps again. But you know, I had told some friends that, you know, Bill Mott's kind of a mentor of mine. I worked pretty closely with him during my days at Live Oak, and I just felt he was going to have a great day, even with Olympiad. You know, I had won a lot of good money, even though Flightline won, but you know, that whole part of Cody's Wish and you know, being at the farm and then going to see the horse and the horse laying his head in his lap. I mean, it's just it's one for the ages, and for that horse to pop up and win, man, I don't want to cry now, but man, that was so special.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I agree with you. I think that is as good as Flightline was, and he could be as special a horse as we've ever seen. Many people feel that way. But regardless of his performance, what took place on the human side of things with Cody Dorman was really incredible, and I agree. I think that was the moment of this year's Breeders' Cup. I'm going to ask Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin their thoughts on that at 10:30 Eastern when they join me during this week's I Ask, They Answer. All right, let's fast forward to what we're going to see coming up this afternoon at Churchill Downs. 11 races, first post 1 o'clock. 8 of those races are Claiming Crown events, and the first time the Breeders' Cup, the Claiming Crown has ever been held at Churchill Downs.
We are so excited for today. I mean, the first 3 races that are carded are not Claiming Crown races, so we really kick off at race 4, and we'll go all the way to the end. We're ecstatic with the field. We were just over the moon with the number of eligibility requests that we had come in. You know, when you're looking at 4 of the races that have 12 plus horses in it, it's extremely well supported year after year. And having the 24th edition here at Churchill, just them giving us this opportunity, and the Kentucky HBPA stepping in and helping fund this, and having the addition of the KTDF funding has also been just an overwhelmingly positive for today's races. So I definitely want to thank all of Churchill Downs, but specifically Mike Ziegler, Ben Huffman and Dan Bork. Usually I say Ben and Dan, that's why I got that tongue tied there. But they've been amazing to work with in getting all of this set up. And then, of course, Rick Hiles and all the board at the Kentucky HBPA who opened their arms to be supportive of this year's races. I can't thank all of them enough. And I'm sure I echo that same for Toba.
Yeah,
our partner in Toba.
I should probably know this date, but what was the first year the Claiming Crown was held? Was it 99?
99, yep.
Okay.
Started at Canterbury, yep.
It's undergone so many changes, Canterbury and Gulfstream, and now we see it here at Churchill Downs. Talk about what coming to the Bluegrass and running it beneath the TwinSpires means to this event.
You know, having the Breeders' Cup here in Kentucky this year, I think gives a lot of the romance to having the Claiming Crown here in Kentucky also, because, I've said before with the groups that, at Gulfstream all those years and how supportive they were, I always saw the Claiming Crown, not as the end of the year, but more the beginning of the next racing season. Obviously the Breeders' Cup, I think we all feel is, that's the finale, right? We're setting our championship standards, and, it's a done deal, so to speak. And so I've always kind of envisioned, at least in my tenure, the Claiming Crown is the kickoff to next year. And so in my mind, it still is that, and having the possibility of this year being, in the same state, having tremendous support from, as usual, Mike Maker, but now with Tom Van Berg, Joe Sharp, Safi Joseph, I think has the most. I think he has 7 plus a couple also eligibles. I mean, it's extremely well supported. And if you did look at, the eligibility request, there were horses from everywhere. I mean, we've got a horse shipping in from Virginia, from Colonial Downs, actually owned by the National HBPA president, Dr. Doug Daniels, a veterinarian. One of his horses is shipping over. So it's a good location. I will say that to have a multitude of ship-ins be ready, but I'm also just over the moon happy at the horsemen here in Kentucky that also embraced it as well. And again, I can't ever thank Mike Maker enough. He's so supportive of this event.
You mentioned the name Joe Sharp, and I was reading through some of the press releases regarding this year's Claiming Crown, and I was shocked to learn that Joe Sharp has not saddled a Claiming Crown winner yet. It seems like he would have had a multitude of Claiming Crown winners, but he hasn't, and he has 3 horses set to go in the races later today. It would be really cool, considering everything Joe Sharp has been through personally over the past several years, to see him get a Claiming Crown victory later today.
Absolutely. I mean, he's such a great guy. Really enjoyed talking to him, and And to be honest, I've, had a chance for several years to work with Rosie on aftercare projects. So, I would be over the moon happy for Joe to really take home some races today.
I see my man Keith DeSormo is there too with a stakes winner, the Bourbonnais Oaks winner, Candy Raid, who is going to be racing in the Tierra.
Yeah, no, again, that obviously, once again, getting top jocks from around the country coming in for this event, along with the trainers and the horse flesh that we get just means a lot. And obviously, there's not too many Louisiana people that I'm ever going to root against. So Kent is right up there.
How often do you see a horse like Candy Raid, who competed in the Kentucky Oaks earlier this year, running in the Claiming Crown? You don't see this caliber of runner very often.
That yes and no. I think the one disadvantage that we've seen, being so close to the Breeders' Cup, is that we didn't get any filters over. Now, when we had it at Gulfstream and we were running it in December, it wasn't uncommon for, a horse that may not have done great in the Breeders' Cup show up in the Claiming Crown. As a matter of fact, Bill Mott did it pretty successfully one year. Well, it's probably been several years ago now with COVID. I kind of run that blank, but it's not overly uncommon to see graded stakes performers step into this race, because there's so many that are, claimed with this sort of path in mind. And certainly Mike Maker has done it for years. That was the intent. They went out, they found these horses that they thought could compete at a better and higher level, and then end up running in a grade 3, maybe run in a grade 1, and they run, second or third, but, they claimed them maybe for 50, 62.5, and they're eligible then to come into these races. So I think it's probably not as common unless you're really, handicapping those races every year, dissecting them, but I do think it's fairly common.
Eric, do you like this placing on the calendar as opposed to running it maybe 3 weeks from now, early December, like you were doing at Gulfstream?
I would say if I had to make a choice, I certainly would prefer to be later in the fall.
Yeah.
But again, when you have, obviously it's the weather that makes that possible. I would love to run and move it, every year from that standpoint, but then you're running it at different times. Indiana Grand has wanted it, or Horseshoe Indianapolis, still hard to say, but they certainly expressed interest. But again, you got to bring it to somewhere like in July, and you don't have as many fall choices. So having it that late in December at Gulfstream, for a number of years was very beneficial. But I definitely feel as if it needs to be in the fall, and it needs to be after the Breeders' Cup. So I'm happy with this placing. I will say that the plan is now, and I'm pretty sure I said this on your show a few months back, the plan is now to move it to the fairgrounds for 2023, going to New Orleans. Really happy about that. And it'll probably be at least 1 week later. I think the plan right now, without anything being inked, it would be the weekend prior to Thanksgiving. So that still gives me that fall appreciation date. But yeah, as long as it's after the Breeders' Cup, I think I'll always be happy. I just don't feel as if we move it back to a summertime meet or to a summertime race date, it's going to have as good of an impact as it does now.
Talking with Eric Hamelback, he is the CEO of the National HBPA. The Claiming Crown, which they put together every single year, is coming up later today at Churchill Downs. The first time it's ever been held at Churchill, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch those horses flash beneath the TwinSpires as we do on the first Saturday in May. But now Claiming Crown taking center stage there. It should be a wonderful afternoon of thoroughbred racing. Eric, when you start to go out and talk to prospective trainers and owners about participating in the Claiming Crown, what are the 2 or 3 points you want to absolutely make sure that they know?
I always kind of come back to what you said at the beginning, that this is, set up to be the Breeders' Cup for the claiming horse. Now, at the end of the day, I don't think anybody is going to ever argue the importance of the Breeders' Cup, but the importance of the claiming horse here in the United States is as not, or I should say, in my opinion, is as important, if not more important, than the Breeders' Cup from the standpoint of that's the backbone of racing. It's the Thursday racing that pays for the purses that come on Saturday. So, that is to me the always important message to get across, because I want trainers and owners to understand that this class of racing, this group of racing, was created by those who are in the business, and it is intended to be supportive of those who are the backbone of the industry. And now the second point, how damn competitive they are, right? I mean, I love speaking to some of these guys that are true professional horse players. They love this group of racing because of the full fields and the ability to find a winner at a price, but have the option of really laying out a group of horses that are completely competitive on a day-to-day basis, and they all fit together. So that's really now one of those has progressed into a point, but that's definitely the 2 points I try to convey.
Eric, before I let you go, I'm going to rephrase the question that I asked you in the beginning of our conversation when I asked you about your favorite moment at the Breeders' Cup. Your favorite moment from last weekend, would it have been Cody's Wish winning the dirt mile or LSU taking down Alabama?
Well, I'm not going to lie, Mike. I cannot lie. LSU beating Alabama, although, doing it in 2019 and hanging the hat on the Natty, that was pretty dang special. But last weekend was, I think, unexpected, and the way they did it makes it pretty damn special. I can't lie about that.
Yeah, no, I know that's a special thing. It was a great weekend for you, and I know it's going to be a great day for you coming up later today at Churchill. Enjoy every moment, and as always, appreciate the conversation here on the program, my friend.
Thank you, Mike. It's always a pleasure to be on, and I just really appreciate all the support you've given to us, and thanks for everything you guys do.
Yeah, anytime. Eric Hamelback, the CEO of the National HBPA, with me here on this Claiming Crown Saturday. When I come back, it is time for this week's edition of Unsung Heroes presented by Woodbine. Then John Sadler will join me. You won't want to miss that. This is the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Family run since 2001, Mulholland Springs has established a reputation for raising, selling, and racing top-class horses, including Grade 1 winners Bodie Express, Never Retreat, and Malibu Mint, along with 2022 leading juveniles and Tell Me No Lies and Cave Rock. Mulholland Springs is also proud to have bred and raised Breeders' Cup Sprint contender Manny Wah, winner of Keeneland's Grade 2 Phoenix. Maintaining a high level of individual care and attention to detail for each horse. Visit us at mulhollandsprings.com.
Consider the advantage of owning a Maryland bred and run for 30% more in Maryland. With a lucrative 15% owner bonus and a 15% developer bonus on all open overnight races for Maryland breds finishing first, second, or third, it pays to race in Maryland. Learn more about all the advantages of breeding and owning Maryland breds at MarylandThoroughbred.com. Look for Maryland breds at the upcoming fall sales and be part of the Maryland success story.
Achieve Equine, makers of Flair Equine Nasal Strips, brings you innovative, evidence-based products for the health and well-being of your equine athletes, like the new Impact Protection Half Pad from Europe, VIP Equestrian, that provides a superior layer of cushioning for the horse's back. Visit AchieveEquine.com for more information on the innovative products we offer. That's AchieveEquine.com. Breathe easy, we've got your back.
Churchill Downs 19-day fall meet runs now through November 27th with 15 stakes worth over $4 million and purses powered by the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development Fund. You are not going to want to miss the fall meet at Churchill Downs. Featured during the meet will be the November 12th Claiming Crown, the Grade 1 Clark on Friday, November 25th, and the start to the road to the Kentucky Derby on Saturday, November 26th with the Grade 2 Kentucky Jockey Club. For tickets and more information, visit churchilldowns.com.
Hi, this is Doug O'Neill. My favorite radio show is the Horse Racing Radio Network.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Heroes in the world of sports are not uncommon, oftentimes thrusting themselves into the limelight through unimaginable feats.
Back behind the ball, Woods, Hudson.
Get in! He has done it! Tiger is back! Tiger is back on top! Tiger Woods, the 2019 Masters champion!
And breathtaking performances.
Here's how you count to 8. 3, 2, 1. And for the 8th time, college basketball's national championship trophy is coming home to Kentucky.
But behind every great hero, there are others. Individuals who play a crucial role in the achievements of those we read about in the headlines. The ultimate team players, content to stand behind the curtain, embracing their place as a vital part of a sport's success. In horse racing, these are the unsung heroes.
You know, when we were at Breeders' Cup last weekend, I was watching so many of the handlers around the horses, whether they be grooms or even in the morning the exercise riders and the assistant trainers, and it reminded me that this is a sport filled with unsung heroes that takes a village to get to these highest levels, and assistant trainers play such a vital role. And this past week I had the opportunity to sit down for a full hour with Kelly Wheeler, who is the assistant trainer to Eddie Keneally. She started working with Eddie back in 2015 after spending time with Charlie Lepresti prior to that. And you're going to hear that entire 1 hour conversation coming up next Wednesday, this coming Wednesday actually, on our Trainer Talk show from 6 to 7 Eastern. That show every week presented by Fasig-Tipton. But I thought it would be appropriate this morning to take an excerpt of that 1 hour conversation and play it for you here and honor Kelly Wheeler as this week's unsung hero. She is certainly deserved. And I began our conversation by asking her where the love of racing began for her.
Being from Western Massachusetts, I wasn't far at all from Saratoga, and my father and my mother, but my father specifically has always had a love for the game, and he started bringing me to Saratoga with him from a super young age. I mean, I don't know, I was probably 5, maybe even younger, but somehow I loved horses. I don't really have anybody in my family that's involved in horses directly, but when I was little, I loved horses and he loved the racetrack, so it was just kind of natural that he took me with him to the track, and that's kind of how I fell in love with this business.
What do you remember about those early days at Saratoga, Kelly?
I think probably my earliest memories, as far as like a specific horse, would have been, I have no idea how I fell in love with this horse, but 4-Star Dave I loved him. Like, I had posters all over my room, and like I just wanted, like, every time I would walk out of the track with my dad, we'd walk by the different artists, and I would like beg him to buy me pictures of this horse. And I don't even know, like, I know I saw him run, but I don't, like, I was very young. Like, the last time he won at Saratoga, I was probably 7 or something. And but though my memories of, I guess, like that specific horse, and just the whole track are my early memories that I loved. Just everything about it. It was just very, Saratoga specifically, and the more racetracks I see, the more I realize that. But Saratoga is just like, there's such a romantic atmosphere, I guess you could say. It's just so different than so many places, and that's kind of what stuck out to me as a kid, is the horse players. And, you know, people go there to see horses. People go there because they love horses, not even necessarily the game. But it's just a very different place, and that's my earliest racetrack memories are that place and just the romantic side of it, I guess.
There is a picture somewhere buried in a box here at the house, I'm sure, in one of my countless photo albums that I've kept from when I used to go to Saratoga. There were times, Kelly, I didn't have a whole lot of money to bet with. I'd go over with $20 in my pocket and take my camera, and I would just take pictures of horses before these big races, horses like 4-Star Dave, and I can remember Sky Beauty and Easy Goer. It was cool. I mean, it's part of what made Saratoga so special and makes it so special even to this day.
Right, absolutely, yeah. It's funny you say that about having like $20 to bet with. I was like allocated $2 a race from my dad.
Yeah.
And that's something else I remember. Like I'd have to be like, okay, this is the one I want. And he'd go up and place a bet for me and $2 a race.
Did you eventually get into handicapping and betting and all of that too?
No, I mean, not really. I'll bet a little bit, and I look at the races that we have horses running in. But as far as just gambling in general, no, not really. It's not really something that I've ever been super interested in, which is probably good because I guess horse trainers are usually notoriously bad gamblers.
Yeah, at what point did you say, okay, this is what I want to do with my life? I want to be around the sport and I want to be around the horses.
Well, I can't actually remember what exactly was that moment where I knew I wanted to train racehorses, but I know my parents have this little Christmas ornament that I made in school when I was like 8. And we had to put like our name on there and what we like to do when we're not there and what we want to be when we grow up. And on that ornament, it says, I want to train racehorses. So no. I have no idea, like being from a family that's not directly involved with horse racing at all. I don't know what that it actually clicked that this is what I want to do for a living. It's just been my whole life. It's been something that I've always wanted to do, and been very focused on how I could make that happen. And being from Massachusetts, I just had to kind of find my way to do that. I was very fortunate when I was about 17. My dad started living in Saratoga in the summers just for the meet, and I would go with him, and I worked my first thoroughbred job was working for the McMahons, who are local to Saratoga, and they have a breeding farm, and I worked at their farm, and I worked a couple sales for them. And that's probably when it really, once I really worked directly in the business, I knew I didn't want to do anything with breeding, but that's when I really realized, like, this is the industry that I want to work in.
Were your parents supportive of that decision, or did they want you to go a different direction?
Oh, no, my parents are happy with whatever I choose to do, but my dad has been my absolute biggest supporter my whole life. He wants me to do this, and he loves it. It's great for him. He's very supportive of me being in this industry and training horses.
Yeah, it's really interesting because so many times when I've talked to, even established trainers in this game, and they walk me back through how they first got involved, it goes one of two ways. Either it goes the way that your journey has gone, where their parents are very supportive, and you said your dad really wanted you to do this, and he was cool with it, or it goes the other way, where they say, okay, you can do it, we'll support you, but you have to get your education first, or you have to do this and this and this first before you can go do it. So.
Well, I guess I did kind of have that also. Like, my parents were very adamant about me going to college, and it ended up working out because I was like, okay, I will go to college, but I'm going to college in Kentucky. And that's like, I knew I wanted to be, at this point, when I was 17 or 18, I knew I wanted to somehow learn how to, gallop racehorses. I wasn't sure where to start. I knew I wanted to work in the business. So I actually emailed when I set on going to Kentucky. I looked at University of Kentucky, hated it, way too big. So I ended up choosing Midway College, super small college, and it was all women's college at the time. But I went there and I was like, okay, this is perfect. Midway, Kentucky, I'm surrounded by horse farms. I'm just going to email somebody. And I emailed Three Chimneys, and they hired me to work weekends in their broodmare division. And that's kind of how I guess, justified going to college. I went to college because they wanted me to, and I went because I was like, well, I'll be able to live somewhere and I can utilize where I am and work some pretty cool jobs while I'm there.
So you finished college. You really couldn't go full on with the horse business until you completed your studies, I'm sure, because that was taking up a lot of your time. So walk me through the progress from there.
So from college, well, I finished college early. I was dead set on getting out of college. So I was like, give me as many credit hours as I can handle. I need to get this done. So I graduated in 3 years, and I had started working for a guy at the training center in Lexington, and that's kind of how I started learning how to gallop. And then I would still go up to Saratoga in the summers and work for Gary Contessa. And Gary's one of the big reasons that I actually stayed in college, because I was like, after my first year working on the racetrack, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I don't need college. We got to focus on this. And Gary called me and he was like, I heard you might be thinking about leaving college. And he told me he would make sure that I never got a job on the racetrack if I didn't complete college.
Wow.
So it was after that I believed him. I mean, I'm sure, we all know that I could have still got a job, but I was like, oh God, I better do this. So that's when I was like, okay, let me finish this. So I finished college, and I started working at a farm breaking horses out in Nicholasville, Kentucky. And I spent a spring working there, breaking babies. And then I went to the track with some of those babies. And somewhere in there, I met Charlie Lepresti. And I started working for him as a rider and just riding mostly babies. I wasn't super experienced at that time. And I worked for Charlie just for a few months. This would have been about 2010. And I worked for him for a few months. And then I actually took a little bit of a hiatus from horse racing, and I moved to Montana for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And had a little bit of I was just breaking horses out there, and I mean, it was still horse experience, but took a little bit of a break. And then I came back, and Charlie hired me back. And I started working for Charlie in 2012 up at Saratoga, and just helping in the barn. I wasn't even riding at this point. And then it turned into a full-time job, and worked for Charlie for a few years and got better at riding and learned more about doing an assistant job. Kind of worked like as a foreman for him. And when we parted ways, I took an assistant job for Eddie, and that was kind of how I got where I am now anyway.
I had texted you before we came on air, and I said, give me your 2 favorite racehorses. And you said, boy, that's a tough one. I loved 4-Star Dave, but currently probably Braidster with Eddie Keneally and Wise Dan with Charlie Lepresti. 2 good ones.
Definitely. They were really special horses to be around. When I worked with Dan, it was just, you couldn't even, I was still very new to horse racing, and I don't even know at the time if I appreciated how good he was. Obviously we knew, and every race was so exciting. And I started working for Charlie when Dan was 3. He actually was on a little bit of a break, the brief time that I worked for Charlie in 2010. So I wasn't really around him at all then. But then when I came back and I started working for him in 2012, he had just run second in the Stephen Foster. And then that kicked off him. I think he won 9 races in a row after that. And then, I was along for really his whole career after that. And it was just unbelievable. It was special. And then Braidster was the first horse that I galloped, probably the first, good horse that I rode myself. I was lucky enough to start riding him when I started working for Eddie, and he was running in the Breeders' Cup Mile that year that I started working for Eddie. So it was like the first time I felt like Eddie really trusted me to ride him, and it was really special. And he didn't run great in the Breeders' Cup, but then we had some fun with him the year after that, and that's when Braidster won the Stephen Foster, and he was just a really fun horse to be around.
Do you have a favorite Braidster moment or memory that's always going to stand out to you, other than some of those big wins?
Honestly, his races weren't even what stuck out to me. What stuck out to me with that horse is when I started working for Eddie, I'm still learning as a rider. Everybody's always still learning, but I was really learning when I started for Eddie. And just being able to be around a horse like that. And at first, when I started riding him, I was really intimidated by him. And he taught me so much as a rider that's how I ended up being so emotionally attached to him. And just because he was an older horse, he just taught me so much about riding horses. And
the horse taught you. Braidster taught you about riding horses, not Eddie.
Absolutely.
How does the horse teach somebody how to ride? How does that work?
So I remember something I'll never forget this. This horse he was a lovely horse to ride, but he was a big, strong, studdish colt. So I was super intimidated by him, and just the fact that, he was one of Eddie's better horses at the time, and I had just started working for Eddie. I was very nervous to ride him. And he used to, play a little bit on the racetrack, and it used to, I'd be like, oh, my God, can I handle this? I don't want to screw up this guy's horse and have him fire me and whatever. And I was talking to a friend of mine, a really close friend of mine, Reeve McGahee, but he was telling me, Kelly, just trust the horse. He's not going to get himself hurt. He's too good of a horse. He's not going to do anything stupid with you on his back. You just got to trust him. I'll never forget him telling me that. And after that, I did, and I just started that's when Braidster he taught me a lot about riding, just trusting the horse and not reacting, and just having confidence in myself would make the horse train that much better. And that horse, I can really pinpoint that horse was a big change in my riding.
Fascinating stuff from Kelly Wheeler. I don't think I've ever heard a trainer or a exercise rider come on this program and say that the horse helped make them a better rider and not the other way around. It really fascinating. And that's just one part of the conversation I had with Kelly coming up this Wednesday on Trainer Talk, presented by Fasig-Tipton. Again, the full 1 hour conversation, 6 to 7 Eastern on Wednesday. Of course, you can listen right here on these same Sirius XM channels and stream us worldwide at horseracingradio.net, and check out the podcast if you can't listen live. I'm back with more right after this word from Woodbine.
The thrill of world-class racing continues at Toronto's Woodbine Racetrack. Kick off the weekend's action with Twilight Racing each Thursday evening at 4:50 p.m. Eastern, followed Friday, Saturday, and Sunday programs beginning at 1:10 p.m. Eastern. With racing now through December 11th and plenty of weekend stakes, you are not going to want to miss the action at Woodbine. For wagering updates, handicapping tips, racing news, and more, visit woodbine.com. That's woodbine.com.
If you know someone you feel deserves to be honored as an unsung hero here on HRRN, simply email their information to me, tell me their story, let me know how I can get in touch with them, and I'll do my best to have them on this program in the weeks ahead. That's Mike at horseracingradio.net. When I come back, you'll hear from Trainer John Sadler looking back on Flightline. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Adina Stallions set the gold standard, all #1 in their category. Point of entry, the #1 stallion by black type and greatest stakes winners standing in Canada.
A wild finish coming here, and point of entry. Oh, the classy point of entry would not be denied.
Shaman Ghost, the #1 second crop sire standing in Canada.
It's Shaman Ghost, an overwhelming force in the last 16th of a mile. Shaman Ghost has beaten Midnight Storm.
Signature Red, the #1 stallion by percentage of black type winners standing in Canada.
Signature Red won his second Highlander in a row.
And Silent Name, the #1 stallion by percentage of black type performers standing in Canada. A list that includes Grade 1 winner Silent Poet.
Silent Poet in front. Admiralty Pier out the ground, but Silent Poet has won the Highlander Stakes.
Adina Stallions, setting the gold standard. Visit adinastallions.com. It's time now to shine the spotlight on the Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week.
It is Gunite with the advantage off the turn to Cody's Wish. Cyberknife between that pair. Slow down Andy is in fourth. Cyberknife, Cody's Wish, and Cody's Wish has a narrow lead. Cyberknife is right there to the inside. Slow down Andy coming late from third. Cyberknife fighting back. Cody's Wish right alongside. Down to the wire. Cody's Wish wins it for Junior Alvarado.
Cody's Wish coming from off the pace to win a thriller in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. His second Grade 1 victory following the Forgo, in which he defeated champion Jackie's Warrior. A winner in 7 of his last 8 starts, Cody's Wish is a future Darley Stallion, and he is your Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week. To learn more about all the Darley Stallions, visit darleyamerica.com.
Hi, this is Jockey John Court. You're listening to the Horse Racing Radio Network.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Here's Flightline. He was 3 lengths away. He was 2 lengths away. He draws within a length and a half of Life is Good. And this duo goes on past the quarter pole into the stretch at Keeneland. And Flightline just moves right by Life is Good. Flightline has the lead. He's got it by 2. He's got it by 3. A furlong to go. Life is Good is second. Gap of 5 back to Taba. Flightline, a 16th to go. World-class racehorse, world-class performance, and a world championship event. Flightline has won the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on this Saturday morning. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, taking you through this 3-hour edition of the show, as I do every Saturday morning. Kurt Becker with the call of the Breeders' Cup Classic, that historic performance by Flightline, winning by a record margin and doing it with consummate ease. What a horse. He is now off to stud, and this past Wednesday on my Trainer Talk show, I had the chance to catch up with John Sadler. And we spent about 30 minutes talking about what this day was like for him and what's next for John Sadler now that he says goodbye to Flightline and shows up and sees an empty stall. Well, the first question I asked John was, what was going through your mind as you were listening to Kurt Becker's call?
When I was listening to the call, I was just very happy, because, everybody said, well, you feel exhilarated. I felt a sense of relief. Because we thought we had the best horse. And sometimes when you have the best horse, it doesn't always go your way. A horse can get loose. You could stumble at the start. There could be a lot of traffic issues, none of which happened, partially because the horse is so good, he can get any kind of position on the racetrack. So it's probably pretty golden the rest of the race. So it's more of a relief, and then we'll start to enjoy it more this week and going forward into kind of the award season. But it was just a great day. Keeneland did a tremendous job. Breeders' Cup did a good job. The city of Lexington was very accommodating. So all together a win-win-win.
I love the fact, John, that before we started putting this show together, I called you and I asked you if you were still on Cloud 9, and you said, well, I'm right back at the barn working and doing my thing again. It doesn't end for a horse trainer, does it?
No, it really doesn't. We've got other nice horses in the barn. We're excited about what's going to happen next year. So we're looking ahead already. There'll be plenty of time for celebrations and parties going forward. So right now we're looking at the immediate. We're selling 3 mares at Keeneland today. Very excited. We sold Edgeway there yesterday for big money. So right now we're still in the work mode.
You know, so many people are saying that Flightline is the greatest horse they've ever seen, or the greatest horse since Secretariat, whatever the case might be. How about for you? You've been around some pretty good horses, John. Is this the greatest horse you've ever seen?
Well, you know, it's hard to compare horses from different eras, but he's certainly one of them. You know, just go conservative. He's one of them. And I think the other thing that you could say with a lot of confidence is his performance in the Pacific Classic was one of the best races ever run by any racehorse on an individual day. So whether you take Flightline's Pacific Classic or Secretariat's Belmont, you know, it was just a spectacular race that day. I'm not saying the Breeders' Cup Classic isn't equal. I think the performance in the Pacific Classic was even more jaw-dropping, you know. So, you know, it's hard to compare horses at different eras, and that's not really a good thing. But Flightline is great. There's no doubt about it.
There have been 39 runnings of the Breeders' Cup Classic. No horse has ever won by the margin that Flightline won by on Saturday. Put me there with you, John. What was it like watching that race, and take me through the race with you?
Well, the main thing is we wanted to see him get out clear. And from there on out, it pretty much ran, you know, the way we thought it would. We thought Life is Good as the speed. We thought we'd follow him, you know, especially drawing a little bit outside of him. You know, what we didn't know what would be the tactics with Irad Ortiz, meaning does he kind of wait a little bit with him and try to finish up with him as we try to run away from him a little bit. So I think their thinking was to run away a little bit and, you know, see if Flightline can come get him. So that was a tactic we were very comfortable with, and we had a very good ride, very good rider with Flavian Pratt, who doesn't panic. And he looked actually, very comfortable all the way around there.
You know, the fraction went up for the three-quarter time of 107 and change, which that has now been revised to 109 and change. But when you saw the 107 pop up, what were you thinking?
Well, I really didn't see the splits. I wasn't looking at it. Somebody told me that after. And so I said, that can't be right, is what I said when they told me after the race. I didn't see it during the race, which is probably better. It would have been more of a, heart attack moment if I had seen that split, and I'm glad I didn't.
Could you say, John, that it could be even more difficult to train a horse of Flightline's caliber, considering the fact that, he had the expectations and he had, let's call it, the weight of the world on his shoulders, at least the racing world anyway, coming into there. And there were so many people that thought, okay, if he doesn't win this race, it's going to be such a big disappointment. Can it be more difficult for a trainer to train a horse like this than a horse that's maybe more under the radar?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of inherent pressure because, like, you training with expectations, not just the fans' expectations, but our own expectations. But you have to remember these are horses, and I tried to just keep an even keel, saying that I don't need to be better than I am. I just need to be Flightline. So I just had to keep him in good shape, keep him where he'd been, coming off his last race. I didn't have to train him harder. I didn't have to train him way less. I just wanted to keep him right in a straight line, and that's what happened.
Is it difficult to come to the barn and not see him in his stall?
Yeah, I mean, that's really, really super hard, but, I did kind of that emotions, leading up to the race and after the race. And, right now I'm going, boy, we've got some huge holes to fill. So, we send a lot of horses home every year. So they'll go on to be broodmares or stallions or whatever. So I'm thinking about the holes at the moment, but we'll get moving forward with that too.
Yeah, that's a big hole. That's a hole that may never be filled, considering how good he was and how special he truly was. He goes off to stud, and there was talk that he may run into next year, and I know that would have been welcome news to you, but they have decided to retire him to stud over at Lane's End. When they finally made the call that he was not going to race next year, what was that like for you?
Well, because, I was expecting a little more backlash than he's actually seen, They say, well, the racing public wants more, or I'd like to see more, you'd like to see more. But this decision was purely based on what's the right thing to do for Flightline. We decided that it was the right thing to do is to get them out now, not try to make the Pegasus where you're, running late in January, then trying to get on a van and breed them the next week. So we're comfortable with our decision because it was a correct decision, maybe not for the sport, but it's a correct decision for the horse. And, we kind of made a pledge, or I made a pledge with that horse, and always going to act in his best interest.
Yeah, the economics of the game make it very difficult to keep a horse like Flightline in training. And we see that with 3-year-olds a lot, too, where you have a good 3-year-old, an exceptional 3-year-old. We don't get to see them in their 4-year-old season because of the way that the game is structured economically now. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and, well, this was, that always plays a role, no doubt. But this decision was based on what's right for this particular horse. So this is correct for Flightline. He's going to, go to stud as a 5-year-old early next year. And, there was a great trainer that once, had the line that's it's better to stop one race too early than one race too late. So we feel good about it. And obviously, the guys at the barn, are going to miss him so hard. His crew that was right on top of him, and we're the same way, but we're a resilient bunch, and I've got young horses to look forward to.
I'm so glad you bring that up, John. You're the one who's in the spotlight. You're the one who everybody wants to talk to and interview because you're the boss. You're the head guy. But there are so many people that have had a hand in Flightline's success. Tell me about some of the people that work with you that have been around him and helped you.
Well, we really have, this is a tremendous unit. First of all, we have Juan Leyva, who's my assistant trainer, and he rode Flightline every day for the entire time he was in our barn. And not only did he ride him, he rode him perfectly. If I told him to do something, it's great for me to draw out the plan, but you still need the players on the field to execute it. So as much effort as I put into strategy and planning, he was able to pull it off on the racetrack with just a, exceptionally high level of skill. So, I have huge props for Juan Leyva. And then his groom, Adolfo Correa, has probably been with me 30-plus years. He's a quiet guy, won't say 2 words, but he's a great groom, and he's had a lot of other top horses for me, and he's solid as a rock. And I have 2 assistants, one Renee Quinteros and one Cesar Aguilar. Cesar was kind of in charge of the therapy on him right after his daily routine. Renee was the one that took him out at 3:45 in the morning and let him look at the stars. You might have a couple of articles written about that. He's kind of a horse that would get nervous, excited to go out and train, so we'd take him out and let him just relax before he ever went to the track. Really key guys and did just a beautiful job. We're going to have to mention West Champagne, who's my blacksmith, did a magnificent job of shoeing him for 2 years. So, it's a team of people. It's not just me. I'm, like you said, I'm the head dog, but I'm really proud of my crew.
I know, John, you said that you're going to have time to take this all in later, and you'll have time to celebrate later because you're back to work now. But when you think back on Flightline, is there a favorite moment or story that you like to tell people about him that maybe even doesn't involve one of his races, but something else that you're always going to remember?
Well, I have a lot of those moments, and those are usually like private moments with me and the horse. Doesn't necessarily involve a race. Last year I had a moment at Del Mar that I worked him on a Tuesday because we got a little bit of a short pattern to get him ready because he ran the last weekend. And it was a Tuesday morning, and nobody was there. I mean, people had gone back to L.A., and, it's just one of those days that came up. We were probably the only horse out there. And he put a work in at Del Mar, and I said to myself, I've trained 40 years. that's the best work I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
I mean, it was just so exciting. He went like 58, but he looked like he was going 102. It was just like unworldly workout. I think maybe one private clocker might have been there that day, or who knows. But I mean, it was just, there was nobody there. It was just me and Flightline and Juan on the track. And it's just, I got a little teary-eyed because I've never seen a horse work like that. So, those kind of moments are very, very special.
Jay Privman had sent out a post on Twitter after the race, and he went through some of your career accolades, more than 2,700 career wins, the 2 Breeders' Cup Classics, and several other runner-up efforts in the Breeders' Cup. And he said it's time to put John Sadler in the Hall of Fame. Do you view your career as a Hall of Fame career, John?
I think so at this stage. We've done it on the hardest circuit here in Southern California, in my opinion. I've been doing it a long time, and I think if you look at the number of Group 1s, 45, 46, whatever, maybe close to 50 Group 1s, I'd like to be in there. But that's, I don't harbor on that stuff. That's not my decision. I just try to do a good job every day.
Well, you would have to think that if John Sadler isn't already there, he is certainly on the cusp of being a Hall of Famer. More than 2,700 wins in his career to date, more than $144 million in career earnings, the 2 Breeders' Cup Classic victories. Maybe the only thing missing is a win in a Triple Crown race, but John Sadler certainly appears to be deserved of a spot in Saratoga Springs, New York, and the voters will, of course, get to determine that. When I come back, I'll take a look at a couple historical dates in racing history and tell you what's ahead in hour number 3. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Life is good. 9 wins from 11 career starts, including 4 Grade 1s. WinStar President and CEO Elliott Walden knows he's special.
To have a horse of this caliber, it's always exciting. There's not many horses that I've been around that have his ability. He just breathes a different air.
They're coming past the 16th fold. It's Life is Good. And this colt is incredible. Life is Good is looking good. Life is Good and Irad Ortiz Jr. They ran him off their feet in the Pegasus.
And they're coming for the finish. It is Life is Good still in front. Life is Good is the winner by 2 lengths. Life is Good the leader with a 16th to the finish. And Life is Good is going to win this Woodward. Life is Good by 1.5 lengths at the end.
Life is Good, the fastest son of Into Mischief, coming to WinStar. Airdrie Stud's Bo Liam has proven to be one of the hottest first-crop sires in central Kentucky. A gorgeous son of the leading young sire Liam's Map, Bo Liam arrived on the national stage with one of the most impressive debuts in the history of Churchill Downs, stopping the clock in 1:08.3, marking the fastest 6 furlongs in history at Churchill. His next 2 races were equally dazzling, as he posted 106 and 107 Beyer speed figures, placing him firmly amongst the fastest 3-year-olds of his generation. The brilliance and support to make it big. Airdrie Stud's Bo Liam. Think about it.
Racing fans, don't miss Breeders' Cup Classic Day this Saturday at spectacular Santa Anita. Admission gates open early for simulcast wagering on a tremendous undercard from Keeneland at 7 a.m. and first live race post time at Santa Anita is at 12:30. Can John Sadler's mighty Flightline remain unbeaten and win the $6 million Classic? Don't miss a minute of the action and experience a day you'll never forget right here at Santa Anita. Post time for the Breeders' Cup Classic is at 2:40 Pacific Time. Closing day for our current 18-day autumn meet is Sunday, and please note, with the switch back to Pacific Standard Time, we will have special early first post time on Sunday at 12 noon. As always, there will be mandatory payouts in all exotic wagers, and fans, we look forward to seeing you on opening day of our traditional winter-spring meeting the day after Christmas on Monday, December 26th.
This is Eddie Delahousie. You're listening to the Horse Racing Radio Network.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Well, don't forget about the poll question. What was your favorite moment in this year's Breeders' Cup? Gave you a few different choices. You can go to @HRRN on Twitter, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook to let me know your thoughts, or email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net. Couple quick historical dates as they apply to this weekend in thoroughbred racing. Yesterday, November 11th, 1978, at age 4, 1977 Triple Crown winner Seattle Slew won his last race. It was the Stuyvesant Handicap at Aqueduct, and he won it by 3 1/4 lengths. Today, November 12th, 1904, is when 4-year-old Machine Gun carried 159 pounds, believed to be the highest impost in a winning effort on the flat in New Zealand. And, of course, today also the anniversary of Alfred Gwynn Vanderbilt's passing. He died at the age of 87 in Millneck, New York, November 12th, 1999. And those are historical dates as they apply to this weekend in thoroughbred racing. Coming up next, hour number 3. It has been a busy couple of hours. Encourage you to check out the podcast at your leisure. But coming up in hour 3, the Pontiff of the Pick 4, Jude Feld, fills in for this week's TwinSpires Triple Play. 3 races you can keep an eye on later today. Kurt Beckers Stroll through racing history at 10:20, and I Ask, They Answer with trainer Dale Romans and turf rider Tim Wilkin, 10:30 Eastern. That's how we'll wrap up the show here today. Going to be a busy third hour of the program. Stay with me. Back with more right after I pause. 10 seconds for station identification. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network.
From the rail to your radio, this is the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Jackie's Warrior to the outside. Elite Power has to go toward the center of the racetrack, but still fourth. Super Ocho, Jackie's Warrior, CZ Rocket. Maniwal runs toward the rail. Elite Power from the outside. CZ Rocket, Elite Power coming on. Elite Power by Ryan Ortiz Jr. to win the Qatar Racing Breeders' Cup Sprint by 2 lengths on the line. Caravel leads it. Emirati Anna up the inside to challenge. Caravel, Emirati Anna, Creative Force runs on from third. Caravel, Emirati Anna, Creative Force third. Caravel and Tyler Gaffalione, 42-1 in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
With 1/8 of a mile to go, here comes Temple. Gaffalione's got him rolling. High Noon Rider is charging. Artie's Rumor and Mug's-O-Matic. Who do you like here? It's now surging on the outside. High Noon Rider getting up to win it. 12-volt man with an upset possibility up the fence. Final 1/8 of a mile driven out. Hanalese Houdini. 12-volt man getting to him. Here's 12-volt man emboldened with a rail run. And 12-volt man springs the upset in the claiming crown jewel.
Now here's Mike Penna.
Welcome back. Hour 3 of the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires, barreling toward the finish line, but plenty more content still ahead, including the TwinSpires Triple Play coming up momentarily with the Pontiff of the Pick 4, Jude Feld, sitting in for this week's 3 races. And then Kurt Beckers Stroll through racing history at 10:20. And at 10:30, I Ask, They Answer with trainer Dale Romans, turf rider Tim Wilkin. We'll talk about some of the storylines coming out of the Breeders' Cup, and I will ask them, what is it that seems to be setting Irad Ortiz Jr. and Ryan Moore apart from everybody else right now? Because they were en fuego at this year's Breeders' Cup, both winning 3 races apiece. We'll talk about that and many more topics coming up toward the end of the program. Don't forget, if you missed any portion of the first 2 hours of this show or any of our shows, all you have to do is head back to our website, horseracingradio.net. You can listen to the podcast at your leisure. You can also do that on every major podcast platform. And if you missed it, my very first interview of the show this morning was with Jockey Junior Alvarado, talking about winning the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, his first Breeders' Cup win, and doing it aboard Cody's Wish, and what was, in my opinion, the story of the Breeders' Cup this year. Yes, Flightline was brilliant, but Cody's Wish stole the show, in my opinion. But that is our poll question this morning. You can go to @HRRN on Twitter, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook, or you can email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net, to let me know what was your personal favorite moment of this year's Breeders' Cup. And I gave you a few different choices. You have Cody's Wish winning the Dirt Mile, Flightline, of course, taking the Breeders' Cup Classic, and Malathot, that thrilling finish in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. And Fourth category is other. So if you choose other, let me know which moment you feel, other than those three, was the moment of this year's Breeders' Cup. And without further ado, the first segment of Hour 3, the TwinSpires Triple Play. And filling in for the folks at TwinSpires today, my good friend, JT, Pontiff of the Pick 4, Jude Feld. JT, good morning.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear your voice. Got a chance to hear it all week long on our Breeders' Cup coverage and, of course, all the way through the Breeders' Cup Classic. Let me ask you before we start, what was your personal favorite moment of this year's Breeders' Cup?
Well, I am a Flightline guy, and that was pretty special performance. So I would say that was my favorite. Race with Malafat was awesome. Managed to hit that exacta. Felt a little sorry for Ness. She didn't have the best of trips. Would have liked her to have a better post position and a little bit better go at it. But that was a great race too. And of course, you mentioned Cody's Wish, which was awesome as well. I mean, it was just a great 2 days of racing, I thought.
Yeah, simply incredible. And there were several moments you could choose. I think those three, which is why I picked them for the poll question today, those three are the three that stood out most to me. But I know that people have been chiming in. There are other moments that stood out to everybody individually for different reasons, which I think is really cool. It's one of the great things about the Breeders' Cup. And later today, we celebrate the Claiming Crown, which is going to be held at Churchill Downs for the very first time. And one of the reasons, JT, that I asked you to fill in and be part of this segment this morning is because you and I had the privilege of broadcasting Claiming Crown many times at Gulfstream Park, and it was always such a fun event to be part of.
Oh, yeah. It was something I look forward to every year, and, they did a great job down there and really highlighted a lot of nifty horses, and that's what the Claiming Crown does. It's kind of a highlight on the working class horses, the horses that go out there and perform every week or several weeks a year and are at it full time, So it's a great event, and I'm looking forward to watching the races this year. The weather's going to be a factor. Rain and track may be off, maybe no turf. We'll have to see what develops later on today, but it's a great event, and a lot of people plan all year, and trainers claim horses just to run in these races. Ridiculously great purses, $8,000 starter races with $100,000 purses. And awesome, really.
Yeah, it really is. All right, so you have selected 3 races, actually 4, because you're the Pontiff of the Pick 4, so I didn't think it was right to limit our listeners to just 3 selections here from you today. So we're going to get through the first 3, then we're going to give a bonus 4th pick, and we're going to begin with race number 5 on the card, which is the Claiming Crown Glass Slipper. It is 1 mile on the main track. How'd you see that one?
Yeah, it's a one-turn mile, and I'm assuming the track might have a little moisture in it. I liked She's All Woman, number 6, trained by Saffie Joseph Jr. This mare, she's won her last 4 starts. She's got Edgar Zayas back aboard. He's won 3 of the last 4, her last 3. She likes an off-track. She likes the distance. She's never run at Churchill Downs, but that may not make much difference. She's by Mucho Macho Man, who's one of our favorites and was a tremendous Breeders' Cup Classic winner himself. So that's my top pick. I think the 9-horse Invaluable might be a good horse to use in the exacta. She likes Churchill Downs. She also likes the distance. She can run on an off track. She's won 2 races on off. Luis Saez rides her, and she has the outside post, so that's always a help going a one-turn mile.
She's All Woman comes into this year's race on a 4-race win streak, and we talk a lot about jockey-trainer combinations in this sport, and we think of John Velasquez and Todd Pletcher, for example. Saffie Joseph Jr. and Edgar Zayas have proved to be a very potent team over the past couple of seasons, and they team up again when She's All Woman. That doesn't hurt either.
No, and, Edgar Zayas, he's a really fine jockey. He came to Keeneland. He'd never ridden there before and rode a horse in a stakes that was like 63-1 that I bet on. And he gave that horse the perfect ride. And he's really talented, very nice guy. He had an injury and was off for quite a bit this year, but he's back and he's riding great, and got to give him a shot.
All right, so we're going to go with number 6. She's all woman in race 5, the Claiming Crown Glass Slipper. We move on to the second leg, which is race number 8, and that is the Reddy's Rocket Express Stakes, 6 furlongs on the main track. What do you think?
Well, this is an interesting race. It's 6 furlongs, so the pace is going to be kind of quick. I was looking for a horse that maybe could finish, and I settled on number 9, Thirsty Betrayal. This is a horse that's run 10 times at Churchill, has 3 wins, 3 seconds, and a third, and has run the 6 furlongs 17 times and won 6 races and been in the money 11 out of 17. Joe Talamo is his regular rider, and the horse just seems to me to be coming up to a good race. Works are pretty decent, and Matt Shire, the horse's trainer, he's having a good year. So he's going to be probably a bit of a price. I think we might get 10 or 12 to 1 on him, and that would be great.
Yeah, 10 to 1 morning line. And the horse for course angle is something you and I discussed, and Bobby Newman was with us on our coverage this past weekend. We discussed that at Keeneland because it seemed like a lot of the horses that ran well at Keeneland on Fall Stars weekend also came back and ran extremely well in the Breeders' Cup, a la Forte and Wonder Wheel. Thirsty Betrayal, a horse for course here. You mentioned Loving Churchill Downs.
Yeah, and it's important at Churchill. Some horses don't really seem to take to the surface. We see that every year in the Derby. Horses train, maybe good going into the race, but they don't run good on it, and that continues on throughout their career. But this horse obviously likes the track, and Joe Talamo has really been riding good lately. He's really been sharp, and won a race for Sam Siegel yesterday or the day before. Anyway, I think the horse has a shot at a good number, and I was looking for something that maybe could pay off.
Pope Jude with you on this week's edition of the TwinSpires Triple Play. 2 more races to take a look at. We've already taken a look at 2, but because Jude is the Pontiff of the pick 4, there's no way I'm letting him get away with just picking 3. So the third leg is race number 9. That is the Rapid Transit Starter Stakes, 7 furlongs on the main track. How'd you see this one?
Well, I like the 2 outside horses in this race. The 11 Soaring Bird from the William Walden stable, he's been running great. Second last time out and 2 wins before that. William Walden claimed him 2 races back, and obviously has done well with the horse since. So he's another one that likes Churchill Downs. He's run there 12 times, has 2 wins, 2 seconds, and 2 thirds, and he's good at the distance. So there's lots of things to like about him. Jack Gilligan takes the reins today, and he's 38% on William Walden horses.
Woo.
So that's a nice little figure, and that's 2 guys that aren't going to attract a lot of attention. William Walden, Elliot Walden's son, has just opened his public stable this year, and a lot of people don't know who he is. And of course, Jack Gilligan, he hasn't ridden that many horses this year, only 178, but he has 19 wins, and he's 3 for 21 at Churchill. So that's a good thing. The other horse is the outside horse, the Queen's Jewel. She won her last race with Florent Giroux. She's a Tom Vanberg horse, and Tom has just been on fire lately. He had a great meet at Keeneland, and he's having a good year. He's winning at 23%. He, of course, is the son of Hall of Fame trainer Jack Vanberg, and lots to like about that one. Great post, nice balanced running style, and another horse that likes an off track. So the Queen's Jewels has a shot.
Huge prices, too. The Pope dropping bombs on this edition of the TwinSpires Triple Play. 20 to 1 on Soaring Bird, 15 to 1 morning line on the Queen's Jewels. Either one of those two would be a great horse to have in your multi-leg wagers, no doubt about it. All right, one final pick, Jude. Usually we limit this to 3, but because, as I said, you are the Pontiff of the pick 4, we have to throw in a 4th selection, and we're going to do that with race number 10, which is the Claiming Crown Jewel. A mile and an eighth on the main track, purse of $175,000. Not too shabby. Who wins this one?
Well, I'm going to go back with Tom Vanberg horse here, the 7, Tis Rye Time. I liked this horse last time out at Keeneland, and he got the job done at 9.43 to 1. So all the same things apply. Likes Churchill Downs, likes the distance, has run well on an off track, got a 99 Brisnet speed figure in his last start at Keeneland. Really, a lot of things to like. I don't know what price he is on the morning line. I don't handicap with morning line PPs. I always handicap with the early PPs. I don't like to be affected by the morning line when I pick in my horses. But he's probably going to be a decent price, and got Rafael Bejarano, who's had quite a resurgence lately as well. So there's a jockey-trainer combo there. Rafael's been winning 25% on Tom Vanberg horses, and he won on this horse last time out.
He is 10 to 1, JT.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we'll take that all day
my
long.
Job. Absolutely. Only need one winner to show a profit.
I'm not sure that I knew that you handicapped with the early PPs before the morning line odds are posted, before the PPs go final, so that you're not influenced. I didn't know that. That's an interesting theory, and I like it.
Yeah, well, a lot of people, get the late PPs because they have the morning line and all that, but I usually get the early PPs, and I don't want to see a horse that's 5 to 2 or something and think, oh, he's probably got a good chance or whatever. I kind of like to do my numbers, do my work, and then decide later if the price is right or not. So I've been doing that for probably the last 15 years, and it really seems to help me.
All right, a TwinSpires Triple Play +1 from the Pontiff of the pick 4, Jude Feld this morning. Race number 5, the Claiming Crown Glass Slipper. He'll go with number 6, She's All Woman, at 9 to 5. Race 8, the Express Stakes, the Reddy's Rocket Express Stakes. He will go with number 9, Thirsty Betrayal, at 10 to 1. Race 9 is the Rapid Transit Starter. He'll take number 11, Soaring Bird, as his top pick at 20 to 1. And race 10, he'll go with number 7, Tis Rye Time, at 10 to 1 in the Jewel. So 9 to 5, 10 to 1, 20 to 1, 10 to 1. What do you think that pick 4 would pay if you could do it?
Probably be pretty good. Got to be in the thousands.
Yeah, incredible.
Probably 2,000 or 3,000, I would think.
Oh, it'd be unreal. So maybe folks can just, since there is no specific TwinSpires Triple Play bet at TwinSpires.com, they can just go there. They can bet these 4 races. They are not in succession, so there won't specifically be a pick 4 wager associated with them, but they can take all 4, bet them any way they would like, maybe even just parlay it from one to the next, to the next, to the next. And we wish them all the best later today. And you too, JT. Thanks for taking time to do this.
All right. Glad to do it. My pleasure.
All right. Good luck, my friend.
Yeah, good luck to everybody else.
By the way, before I let you go, is there a Pope Jude sheet this weekend or anything?
No Pope Jude sheet this week with the Claiming Crown weather and all that. I didn't do a sheet. I don't like to put a sheet out and then have a bunch of scratches and then people get disgruntled. So I just left it alone this week. But you got the inside information here on HRRN. Those are the horses that I'm going to bet, the races we talked about.
All right, there you go. JT, Pontiff of the pick 4, Jude Feld, the Pope, if you will, with us here for this edition of the TwinSpires Triple Play. Head over to TwinSpires.com to bet all of those races later this afternoon. When I come back, Kurt Becker will take you on his weekly stroll through racing history, and then it's time to welcome Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin for this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Family run since 2001, Mulholland Springs has established a reputation for raising, selling, and racing top-class horses with a high level of individual care and attention to detail for each horse.
Pony Express wins the Clark.
Never retreats, takes the First Lady.
It's Malibu Mint, and they take the Grade 1 Princess Rooney.
And Tell Me No Lies has won the Chandelier, and Cave Rock to win by almost 6 lengths in the American Pharoah.
Visit us at mulhollensprings.com.
Racing fans, don't miss Breeders' Cup Classic Day this Saturday at Spectacular Santa Anita. Admission gates open early for simulcast wagering on a tremendous undercard from Keeneland at 7 a.m. and first live race post time at Santa Anita is at 12:30. Can John Sadler's mighty Flightline remain unbeaten and win the $6 million Classic? Don't miss a minute of the action and experience a day you'll never forget right here at Santa Anita. Post time for the Breeders' Cup Classic is at 2:40 Pacific Time. Closing day for our current 18-day autumn meet is Sunday, and please note, with the switch back to Pacific Standard Time, we will have special early first post time on Sunday at 12 noon. As always, there will be mandatory payouts in all exotic wagers, and fans, we look forward to seeing you on opening day of our traditional winter spring meeting the day after Christmas on Monday, December 26th.
This son of Danzig ranks among the world's elite sires, with Grade 1 winners on dirt and turf and star performers both at home and abroad. Warfront's success as an international super sire is unmatched. Recent stars include War of Will, a classic winner on dirt and a Grade 1 winner on turf, Halliday, and Civil Union. In the auction ring, his progeny continued to command top dollar. Warfront, standing at Claiborne Farm.
Hello, this is Bill Mott. You're listening to Horse Racing Radio Network.
Hello, I'm Kurt Becker. Thanks for joining me as I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. With his decisive victory last weekend at the Breeders' Cup Classic, Flightline ran his career record to 6 wins in 6 starts and put the finishing touches on his career and, presumably, a Horse of the Year title. A 3-year-old bay colt with a fashionable pedigree and a sleek athletic build, Flightline left such an impression that a 2.5% fractional interest in the horse was sold at Keeneland for $4.6 million less than 48 hours after the race. What a difference 100 years makes. In 1922, the #1 racehorse in the United States was nothing like Flightline. For one thing, he was a gelding, not a colt. For another, he was a chestnut, not a bay. He was not a 3-year-old, but instead was 7 years of age. And instead of athleticism, his build was more of the rough-hewn variety. His name was Exterminator. Foaled in 1915 at what is today known as Ramsey Farm in Nicholasville, Kentucky, Exterminator was described as awkward and coarse. His sire, McGee, had little success beyond the 1-mile distance. His grandsire was unraced. His dam was unplaced in 2 starts. All of those factors played a role in limiting Exterminator's appeal in the auction ring, as he sold for just $1,500 as a yearling in New York. Soon after winning on debut as a juvenile, Exterminator sustained an injury and went to the sidelines. A combination of an ill temperament and a lack of prominent bloodlines led to his being gelded. And as the months passed, he continued to grow, increasing in stature from an imposing 16.3 hands to a towering 17 hands by spring. Shortly before the Kentucky Derby of 1918, Willis Sharp Kilmer of Binghamton, New York, paid $15,000 for Exterminator on the advice of trainer Henry McDaniel. Kilmer already owned Sunbriar, which was the favorite for the Derby, and McDaniel believed Exterminator to be an intelligent type, which would make a good workmate for the colt. But Sunbriar never made it to the Derby, having been withdrawn just days before the race. Instead, it was Exterminator which went to the post in the Kentucky Derby and ran to victory as the biggest price on the board at odds of nearly 30-1. Exterminator would run in neither the Preakness nor the Belmont Stakes, and in fact would win little else of prominence the rest of the season. But the following year, in 1919, Exterminator would begin winning handicap races at increasing distances, and he would soon rise to the top of the older handicap division in North America. So good was Exterminator at distances of 1.5 miles and greater, in fact, that Kilmer would issue a challenge to Samuel Riddle in 1920. While America was swooning over Riddle's legendary Colt Man of War, Kilmer was demanding a match race. His terms were that the distance be either 1.5 miles or 2 miles, and that the site be a Kentucky racetrack. Riddle, likely believing that Man of War was superior up to 1.25 miles but no further, refused to accept the challenge, and thus the match race with Exterminator never happened. By the start of the 1922 season, Exterminator, now 7 years of age, had become a sports sensation, if not a national celebrity. He was celebrated as the Iron Gelding, the monarch of American distance runners, the revered of all things on 4 legs, and the king of kings among racehorses. He was said to have legs like hickory and muscles as tough as tire rubber, with bulldog courage and Airedale intensity. Often, he was known simply by the nickname Old Bones. No longer known as coarse and awkward, Exterminator was now described as long and angular. Sports riders and handicappers marveled at his ability to carry large amounts of weight over a distance of ground. And the 1922 racing season was full of examples. Consider the following races, all of which he won. There was the Latonia Inaugural, carrying 140 pounds over 1 mile and a 16th. The Kentucky Handicap, 138 pounds at 1.25 miles. The Brooklyn Handicap, 135 pounds at 1 mile and an 1/8. The Toronto Autumn Cup, 132 pounds at 1.25 miles. The Saratoga Cup, 126 pounds at 1 mile and 3/4. The Pimlico Handicap, 133 pounds at 1 mile and a 16th. And just for good measure, Exterminator even won a sprint, the Harford Handicap, at 6 furlongs while carrying 132 pounds. So popular was Exterminator that when he visited Hawthorne Racecourse in Chicago at the end of his 1922 campaign, some 20,000 fans jammed the facility at $3 per head just to watch him gallop 1.25 miles around the track. Exterminator would continue racing until 1924, when he retired with a North American record 33 stakes wins and having surpassed Man of War as America's richest racehorse of all time, with just over $250,000 in earnings. Exterminator, who died in 1945, was inducted into Racing's Hall of Fame in 1957. It was said that he was always well behaved at the post, easily placed in the race, and ready for the test at the wire. And had there been an official Horse of the Year award in the United States in 1922, Exterminator most certainly would have won it. Please join me again next week when I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. For HRRN, I'm Kurt Becker.
And once again, my thanks to Kurt and to Keeneland for making those segments possible each and every week. If you have missed any of Kurt's Stroll Through Racing History segments, all you have to do is head back over to our website, horseracingradio.net. You can check out the special podcast page dedicated to those stories and listen to every single one. There have been some amazing ones. Go back and listen at horseracingradio.net. When I come back, Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin, they will be here. It is this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Curling, the classic sire.
They're off in the Derby City Distaff. An obligatory.
And it's got to be Clariere in the Tip Stakes. Nest, much the best. She won by better than 10 lengths in this coaching club. American Oaks, Cody's Wish, with the upset in the Fargo. And Marathon has won the Personal Ensign Stakes.
Curling, standing at Hill and Dale.
Hey everyone, it's the Baron with this week's North of the Border report presented by Woodbine Entertainment. Hazelbrook, a 4-year-old daughter of Bayern, goes for another graded stakes crown, this time in Saturday's Grade 2 $175,000 Bessarabian Stakes at Woodbine. The 7-furlong main track feature for fillies and mares 3-year-olds and up has drawn 9 starters, including Hazelbrook. Trained by Lauren Richards, the True North Stable Charge has enjoyed a stellar campaign, a season that includes 4 wins from 5 starts, and stakes success in the Grade 3 Henry, the Sweetbriar 2, and most recently, the Grade 3 Ontario Fashion. And partnering Hazelbrook with jockey Jason Hoyt has proven to be a winning combination.
At the top of the stretch, and Marie McKay in front. Hazelbrook on the inside, finishing now. Beyond My Budget coming up strongly as they race after Marie McKay. Beyond My Budget and Hazelbrook inhale and take over. And on the inside, Hazelbrook's gone to the front. Beyond My Budget in second. Out wider Imagery. Hazelbrook from Beyond My Budget and down to the wire. Hazelbrook another stakes victory.
The Bessarabian will be the final start of the season for Hazelbrook, who sports a lifetime record of 6-1-1 from 9 starts. Mark Cassie sends out the duo of Beyond My Budget and Our Flash Drive, while fellow conditioner Safi Joseph Jr. has entered Artie's Princess and All Worthy. Also on Saturday, 11 fillies and mares will travel 1.25 miles on the Tapeta in the Grade 3 $150,000 Maple Leaf Stakes. U.S.-based Charges Dropped, Creative Cairo, and Transient take on a group that includes Kevin Attar trainees Angel Lou and Money for Row. And that's your North of the Border report for this Saturday morning. For more updates and racing information, visit woodbine.com or follow along on both Twitter and Instagram at Woodbine TV.
This is Jockey Rajiv Miraj, and I love the Horse Racing Radio Network, the best show on the planet.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
She had a beautiful trip. Everything went perfect in the race. The pace was strong and was in a good spot, and was able to go when I needed to go. The second, she hung in there tough, and she made me work to get her. I was thinking I'd pick her up a little bit easier than I did, but she's obviously a very good filly, and my girl, it's a 9th run. She was a late foal, always thought an awful lot of her, and she ran in 4 classics this year. She won the Oaks, and I thought she would sort of win Group 1's sport all year. And for whatever reason, things just went against her. She was beat by Alpinista, which was a huge run in hindsight. But today she showed up and put in a really good and very professional performance.
That's jockey Ryan Moore talking about his 3rd Breeders' Cup winner of the afternoon, Tuesday in the filly and mare turf. Both Ryan Moore and Irad Ortiz Jr. walking away with 3 Breeders' Cup wins. What seems to be separating them from every other jockey in the game right now? Plus, with the Breeders' Cup results behind us, does Derby upsetter Rich Strike now have the inside track to a 3-year-old championship? And what was the most notable storyline at this year's Breeders' Cup? We're going to discuss those topics and so much more coming up on this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer with trainer Dale Romans and turf writer Tim Wilkin, all presented by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program in the College of Business. And it all starts just 30 seconds from right now.
Learn the business of horses in the world's only accredited equine business program, the University of Louisville Equine Business Program. The University of Louisville has a legacy of excellence educating and developing industry leaders for over 35 years. Classes are taught by industry experts in state-of-the-art facilities located in the heartland of America's equine industry. The University of Louisville Equine Business Program. When it comes to horses, we mean business. For more information, visit business.louisville.edu/equine.
All right, guys, plenty of Breeders' Cup conversation coming up over the next 20 minutes or so, but I want to start by rewinding the clock 2 weeks ago to our Right or Wrong segment when I asked you both if Flightline would win the Breeders' Cup Classic by more than the current record of 6.5 lengths, and here's what you both had to say.
I'm going wrong on that. As good as Flightline is, he has never faced this type of field.
Well, that's a good question we've got here, and I'm going to go against Tim. I want to make the over and under 6.5 since that's the record, and I'm going over.
All right, well, Dale Romans, congratulations. You get a chance to brag to kick off the show today because Flightline won the Classic geared down by a record 8 1/4 lengths, my friend. Well done.
Well, thank you, people. Yeah, thanks. You know, I'm not one to brag very often. I'm not one to get very arrogant, but I was right. Tim was wrong.
Yeah, I was wrong. All right, put the dunce cap on me. Nice call, Dale.
Don't we have another clip we can play of vulnerable favorites?
We probably do.
Yeah, Tim said Flightline may be a vulnerable favorite.
Yeah, you can pile on this horse today, my friend.
Yeah, we can pile on. I've been on this horse's bandwagon from the day he sold at the yearling sale, and I couldn't afford him. And he just put it all together. He's a fabulous racehorse and going to be a fabulous star. He's the kind that might be able to change the industry for a good way. That was just such an impressive effort.
Agree.
As a matter of fact, I think we've already tried to book 2 mares to him since he retired, and they haven't even put his fee out yet.
Yeah, I think they just did 200,000.
Perfect. That's what it should be. That's what I thought it should be, and I think he'll fill up and be very well received because he's a total package. You ever don't see many horses that are a top sales horse and a top race horse. One of the last ones you can think of is APND. He went on to he was sale topper, champion, racehorse, champion sire. And this horse is just going to follow in his footsteps. I told Mr. Ferris over at the sale that they make sure he puts him in APND's stall.
Well, I'm sure he probably will be, at least close to it. APND, look, I mean, APND was spectacular, right? As a sire, as a racehorse, and it almost seems like sacrilege to put another horse in that stall, doesn't it?
It does until you get one of this caliber. I think this horse is one of the few horses in history that earned the right to at least start out there. You might have to move him later, but if he follows up like APND did, he's going to be a special horse for a long time.
All right, we're going to spend plenty of time talking about Flightline over the next 4 or 5 topics in the show. We have right or wrong coming your way, and then the West Point of the week at the end of the show. But this kind of ties into the first topic that I had for you guys. And Timmy, I'll start with you here. We saw several unforgettable moments in the Breeders' Cup, including Flightline. What was the most notable storyline of this year's event for you?
Well, obviously Flightline was the showstopper, but I thought the most moving story of the whole weekend was the Cody's Wish victory in the dirt mile. He's named for Cody Dorman, the 16-year-old kid from Kentucky that has the rare genetic disorder. He communicates through a tablet, and he has a bond with the horse. And he was there at the race in his wheelchair with his family. And when they had the winner's circle presentation, and they draped Cody's Wish's blanket of flowers around him, the Breeders' Cup blanket. I mean, that was just an emotional moment. And if you didn't get a little teary-eyed looking at that, you have no heart or no soul, because that was just a phenomenal moment.
Yeah, I can't argue with you on that, Tim. This Breeders' Cup was the first one I can remember in a long time. I got to sit down and just watch the whole program. I hope it never happens again. But it was a great day just to sit there and watch. I thought NBC did a good job. All the guys on the show and girls did a great job, and there were a lot of memorable moments. That has to be one of the biggest. Flightline running off and winning like he did. Was one of them. I thought the 3-horse almost dead heat on the wire in the filly and mare race was a special race. It was fun just to sit back and watch racing as a spectator, but I've had my fun and hope it doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, get off the couch, get back into it.
That's right. Get back in the game.
Yeah, no doubt. Hopefully,
but it was a great weekend.
We talked about that last week. Is it really a Breeders' Cup without our good friend Dale Romans or Nick Zito saddling a horse in there? It's a Breeders' Cup with an asterisk, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So next year we'll make it a proper Breeders' Cup when Dale goes west to Santa Anita. All right, topic number 2. You have jockeys Gerard Ortiz Jr. and Ryan Moore, who dominated this past weekend. They combined to win nearly half of the 14 Breeders' Cup races. What's separating them from every other jockey in the world right now, and what other jockeys historically have dominated the sport the way we're seeing them do right now? Dale, you want it first?
Yeah, it's all about the horses, and they're getting the right horses, but you have to earn the right to ride those horses. And it's many years of hard work, dedication put into the game to become that caliber. And, we've had in eras over the time jockeys that dominated. You had the Angel Cordero era, of course, in Kentucky. Pat David went for a day here. And then you got to what Garrett Gomez did in his short time of being on top of the game with the Breeders' Cup. But those two guys definitely had it going on this weekend, and they got to ride good horses. And it wasn't just this weekend. It was a body of work that all came together this weekend for both of them. But by the way, did anybody understand anything Ryan Moore said?
Bits and pieces.
Yeah,
I think he said.
Is that English?
I think he said he did good.
Yeah, he did, and he did. He's a good kid, that kid. Him and William Buick both. I got to know them both a little bit, and they're both just good kids. Good. Well, I guess they're not kids anymore, but they're great riders.
That's true. When you're talking about the Breeders' Cup, the Shoemaker Award, which is given to the top jockey, it started in 2003, and there's only been 2 riders that have won it 4 times. Irad won it the 4 times before Ryan Moore did it, and the only other one to do it was Garrett Gomez. Dale briefly mentioned, he won it in 2005, 2007, 2008, 2010. So for that one period of time, he was a dominant rider at the Breeders' Cup. Mike Smith has had his moment in the sun. Chris McCarron, I think of his 9 Breeders' Cup wins, 5 of them came in the Classic. There's been a whole slew of riders that have just excelled at the Breeders' Cup. And now it's Irad's and Ryan Murphy's time. But there's been a heck of a lot of riders that have done a lot of good in the World Championships of horse racing. Mike Smith, Jerry Bailey, you just go up and down the list, Johnny V. But right now, these guys, like Dale said, they're getting the horses, and it's their time. And, especially with Irad's case, I think he's going to be on top for an awful long time.
Yeah, you could almost feel Irad, getting hot, and you knew it was going to happen. I wonder, you mentioned Mike Smith, the all-time leading rider in terms of number of wins in Breeders' Cup history. How long will it take before Irad is knocking on the door and eventually passes Mike Smith, if indeed he stays healthy and at the top of his game?
Yeah,
it's not going to be long.
Be broken.
Yeah. Mike's as good as it gets, but these guys like Irad and Ryan Moore, and they're just tremendous, and records are made to be broken. That one is probably going to go down at some point with talented riders like that out there. Okay, time to include our
win the next 4 years.
Yeah, very well could. Very well could. I haven't checked Irad's total number of wins in the Breeders' Cup right now, but I'm sure he's, I'm sure he's 17? Up there. Is it 17?
I think he's at 17. I think so.
Okay. Yeah, it won't take long. All right, moving on. It is time to include our friend Nick Zito as we get set to play a few rounds of right or wrong.
Yeah, right or wrong. Am I right? What do you think? Right or wrong?
Okay, guys, 3 topics. I will make the statement. You tell me if that statement is right or wrong. Cybernife's defeat in the Dirt Mile, combined with Taba's 3rd place finish in the Classic and the unfortunate injury to Epicenter, all but guarantees Rich Strike will be champion 3-year-old this year. Is that right or wrong?
Yeah, right or wrong. Am I right?
Timmy?
Well, I'm going to go a heavy wrong on that one. I don't think Rich Strike will be in the top 2. Most people are under the assumption that it's Epicenter's championship to lose. His one grade 1 was the Travers. Second in the Derby, second in the Preakness. He's been a consistent 3-year-old, but I don't know if I'm going to vote for him. Taba won 2 grade 1, the Santa Anita Derby and Pennsylvania Derby, and granted the Travers carries more weight than the Pennsylvania Derby. And Rich Strike, he has the Kentucky Derby, which is the biggest win for 3-year-olds, but he hasn't won anything else since. So maybe this group of 3-year-olds is it mediocre, or is it just really very contentious, the group? I don't know, but I don't think Rich Strike has a chance to be the 3-year-old champion unless he were to come back and maybe run in the Clark and win that.
Cyberknife has 2 grade 1 wins as well. Are you throwing him out completely?
Yeah. Yes, because I think he should. If he wanted to be the 3-year-old champion, I think he should have run in the Classic.
Dale?
I think it's Epicenter. I think that his body of work, if you look at the whole year, is better than the rest of them. I'm a big Rich Strike fan. I think Eric's done a great job with him, but no knock on him. I just think it's Epicenter. I think Travers carries a lot more weight than those other races outside the Derby, and his consistency all year has to make him champion. I don't think you can talk about the Pennsylvania Derby, Santa Anita, the same breath as the Travers, and how well he ran in the Classics, and he danced every dance. It's unfortunate what happened to him, but it looks like he's going to be healthy and going on to be a good sire. I'm sticking with him. I've been on Epicenter bandwagon since the first year, and I'm going to stick with him.
All right, so no Rich Strike for Dale.
But finishing second in those races, does that, in the Derby and the Preakness, does that carry a lot of weight? Don't you have to win those to be the champion?
You'd have to win if you haven't done anything else. If you don't win the Travers, and if somebody else steps up, and nobody else stepped up, and those seconds do mean a lot. They mean a lot more. I think the seconds in the Derby and Preakness are more impressive than the Pennsylvania Derby or a fourth in the Classic the other day. So I give him the edge.
All right, no Rich Strike for Dale or Tim. They are saying that Rich Strike will not be the 3-year-old champion, even though he won the Kentucky Derby. Guys, we still have a race like the Clark coming up at Churchill Downs. What if one of these 3-year-olds jumps up and wins the Clark?
Depends which 3-year-old it is.
Yeah, it would have to be Table or Rich Strike, and they'd have to win, I think, to shift the tides. And that may not be enough. Like I said, the championship was Saturday. Nobody moved way forward in that category, in my opinion.
What if Cyberknife runs in the Clark and wins the Clark?
Or if he goes to Cigar Mile.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Well, I guess you can make an argument there, but every time he's hooked the best, he's gotten beat. I don't know. I've never put him as high regard as I have those other couple we talked about.
All right, that's topic number 1. Let's move on to topic number 2 so we have enough time to get everything in. Topic number 2, the 2023 Kentucky Derby winner ran in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last Friday. Right or wrong?
What do you think? Right or wrong?
Dale?
Wait a second. Say that again.
The 2023 Kentucky Derby winner ran in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last Friday.
I'm going with history and say no. It's that's a tough feat to go back to win, run in there and come back and win the Kentucky Derby. I know horses have done it, but the Kentucky Derby winner may not have even started yet. We still got a lot of strides between now and May, the first Saturday in May.
Yeah, historically, I mean, in the history of the Breeders' Cup, there's only been 2 juvenile champions that have won the Derby. That's Street Sense and Nyquist. And there's been a whole slew of them that have won the juvenile that never even made it to the first Saturday in May. Which is not to say there haven't been good horses that have won the juvenile that have gone on. The likes of Essential Quality was 3rd in the Derby. Good Magic was 2nd in the Derby. Classic Empire was 4th. But if someone was going to put a gun to my head today and say that the Derby winner's coming out of this juvenile, I'm going to say there's no chance.
All right, so a couple of no's saying that statement is wrong for Dale and Tim. One more before we move on to another topic and get to our West Point of the Week. Trainer John Sadler says it is difficult to compare horses from different eras, but plenty of people are considering Flightline to be as good as Secretariat. Are those comparisons right or wrong?
Yeah, right or wrong. Okay.
Okay, Timmy?
Well, and again, I am a Flightline fan. I am. I mean, anybody that saw that Breeders' Cup Classic that was not a Flightline fan would have to have their head examined. But I'm going to say I'm not going to put him in the same breath as Secretariat. I think he would have had to do more on the track to be, compared to the greatness of Secretariat. I mean, for someone to be compared with Secretariat, beforehand, it would be blasphemous to even think that a horse could be as good as Secretariat. The Secretariat won 16 of 21 starts. Flightline has been brilliant in his 6 starts. but I still think he would have to do a little bit more on the track to be compared to the mighty Secretariat. That's just the way I feel, and no one's going to change my mind on that. He's a phenomenal racehorse, and I wish that he would run more. I know there's not the breeding is taken over from the racing side of things, which is sad to me, but that's the world we live in, and he's much too valuable now to run again. But yeah, I think that for me, he's not comparable to Secretariat on the racetrack.
The only thing about comparing eras is it's fun to argue about. And there was a lively conversation about a lot of great racing minds on the rail all week about the same topic, and nobody could come to a conclusion. I mean, some people were pro Flightline, others Secretariat, even Arrogate kept showing up in the conversation. It's fun to talk about, but it's not fair to compare eras. So what we know is that they're all super horses, and they're few and far between, and we're lucky we've gotten to see them.
Yeah, there was a horse named Cigar that was pretty good too.
Real good. There's a bunch of them you could go to. It was fun standing out there. It got to be a lively conversation with everybody having their opinions and all the same things you all have said. All the experts I get to hang out with every day were saying the same stuff, and nobody agreed on anything.
Well, that's what horse racing's all about, right?
That's what it's all about, and that's what it's all the polls and all this, line them up and see who's the fastest. You can't do that across the eras, so it's not fair to compare.
All right, that'll do it for Right or Wrong on this Saturday morning. One more topic to get to before Dale and Tim make their final point, their West Point of the week. But one more topic, and that is following the European dominance that we saw in the turf races at this year's Breeders' Cup, the gap between American and European-based grass runners seems to have widened to levels that we've never seen before. Can the Americans close that gap over the next 12 months before next year's Breeders' Cup? And if so, how on earth does that happen? Dale?
They're always going to be ahead of us, I think, and, we're going to have the ones come along every once in a while. But their whole breeding program, for the last 40 years, they've come over here and bought they've kind of cooled off in the last 5, but for 40 years they come over and bought the top pedigrees we had and took them to Europe, and they became great grass horses, and that's their focus, and that's what they think about. In America, we're more focused on Triple Crowns and dirt races and the classics, and that's what we breed for. We're always going to be up against it, I think, in those turf races. Every once in a while we end up with some good ones. I don't see it changing anytime soon.
Well, it could change if somehow they figure out a way to convince Aidan O'Brien and Charlie Appleby to come over here and train here, because they are just doing a phenomenal job in Europe, and as they have been, they both won 6 of the 7 turf races. And watching the U.S.-based turf runners over the year, you'd say, boy, there were some talented runners, but they couldn't stand up to these European runners. They, like Dale said, that's their game over there, and we've been playing catch up for a long time, and probably it's going to continue to be like that. I mean, the one grass race the U.S. did win, Caravel, was 42-1 in the turf sprint. Yeah, I don't know the answer is, but right now we cannot compete with them.
All right. Well, we're going to find out if there's a way that the Americans can close the gap before next year's Breeders' Cup. But right now, they certainly do seem up against it in those turf races. Time now to give Dale and Tim the opportunity to make one final point. It is the West Point of the Week presented by West Point Thoroughbreds. Don't forget to experience the lifestyle of thoroughbred racehorse ownership with the gold standard in racing partnerships for over 30 years. West Point Thoroughbreds, by the way, part of the ownership group associated with Flightline. All you have to do to learn more about racehorse ownership is text HORSE to 66866. That's HORSE to 66866 and learn about ownership with West Point Thoroughbreds. Message and data rates may apply. All right, guys, time for your final parting shot. Timmy, why don't you take it first? What is your West Point of the Week?
Well, I have 2 real quick ones. One is congratulations to Terry Finley of West Point and his group for being part of that Flightline ownership group. Phenomenal job by them. And also belated happy 80th birthday to Angel Cordero Jr., one of the best that ever did it on the saddle. And the guy is eternally young, and hopefully many more happy years on the backside that Angel Cordero has. The game is great with him in it.
80. Wow.
It's unbelievable, 80. I hope I can get around like he does at 80. My closing part will be, I want to just compliment the Breeders' Cup and Keeneland on a spectacular job. I didn't go for the whole races, but I went early both days, and everything seemed to run smooth. It seemed like people were happy, having fun. They ordered perfect weather. They got it. They did a great job, and it's not an easy thing to do in a small facility. They built it out, and I didn't hear very many people complaining. It was a great day of racing, and congratulations to West Point. They've taken the sport of kings to the sport of syndicates, and anybody interested in horse races should jump on board.
All right, there you go. Well done, guys. We're going to do it all over again next Saturday morning. Appreciate it. Enjoy the weekend, and good luck at the races.
Thanks, fellas.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, if you have a topic you want to hear Dale and Tim debate, you know what to do. Email it directly to me, and I will make sure we work it in. That's mike@horseracingradio.net. I Ask, They Answer is presented by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program in the College of Business. I'll be back with more. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Tenda Equine and Pet Care Products have been keeping world-class equine athletes happy and healthy for generations. Keep your equine athlete looking and performing well with Tenda Next Generation Wound and Skin Care Treatment, along with nutritional supplements, leg and muscle care products, salves, hoof care, poultice, topical aids, and grooming products. Visit tendahorse.com today.
I'm here with Joe Brown Nicholson of Nicholson Insurance Agency. Joe, how do you value a horse for insurance?
Well, Mike, it's easy to value a horse when purchased out of a public auction. The insured value would simply be the auction price. But insuring homebreds can be a little more involved.
How so?
Well, factors such as a stud fee, conformation, pedigree, sales and race records of siblings, even popularity of the stallion, all come into play.
How closely do you work with owners in determining a horse's value?
Well, the owner has a pretty good idea of the horse's value, so generally it's just a matter of agreeing to the request and having the policy issued.
For all your equine and general insurance needs, including farm owners, liability, homeowners, auto, and more, contact Joe Brown Nicholson at nicholsoninsurance.com or call 859-224-7080. That's 859-224-7080. Nicholson Insurance Agency. Life is good. 9 wins from 11 career starts, including 4 Grade 1s. WinStar President and CEO Elliot Walden knows he's special.
You know, to have a horse of this caliber, it's always exciting. There's not many horses that I've been around that have his ability. You know, he just breathes a different air.
They're coming past the 16th fold. It's Life is Good. And this colt is incredible.
Life is Good is looking good. Life is Good and Irad Ortiz Jr. They ran him off their feet in the Pegasus.
And they're coming for the finish. It is Life is Good still in front. Life is Good is the winner by 2 lengths. Life is Good the leader with a 16th to the finish. And Life is Good is going to win this Woodward. Life is Good by a length and a half at the end.
Life is Good, the fastest son of Into Mischief, coming to WinStar. Consider the advantage of owning a Maryland bred and run for 30% more in Maryland with a lucrative 15% owner bonus and a 15% developer bonus on all open overnight races for Maryland breds finishing 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. It pays to race in Maryland. Learn more about all the advantages of breeding and owning Maryland breds at MarylandThoroughbred.com. Look for Maryland breds at the upcoming fall sales and be part of the Maryland success story.
Hey, it's Corey Lannery. You're listening to the Horse Racing Radio Network.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Don't miss out on the Breeders' Cup results issue of Blood Horse Magazine, which is sure to be a collector's item. Subscribe to Blood Horse Magazine by Sunday, November 13th, tomorrow, to ensure that you receive this special Breeders' Cup results issue. Go to bloodhorse.com/subscribe. And now, when you subscribe to Blood Horse Magazine, you get a free Blood Horse Plus membership, which is a $50 value. All you have to do is go to bloodhorse.com/subscribe. subscribe. I'm a little surprised that Dale and Tim aren't giving more love to Cyberknife. And maybe I'm the only one, because I haven't heard many people talk about Cyberknife as a potential 3-year-old champion candidate. But if you like Taba, and Timmy kind of made a case for Taba, well, you got to like Cyberknife. They took turns beating each other this year. Cyberknife beat him in the Haskell. Taba turned the tables in the Pennsylvania Derby. But then Taba ends up third in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Of course, behind Flightline and Olympiad, 2 amazing older horses. And Cyberknife gets beat a zop by Cody's Wish in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. How do you can't separate the two campaigns. They're very, very close. If you like one, you almost have to like the other one. I'm telling you, by default, Rich Strike is going to end up getting... And Rich Strike, we may see him in the Classic. I don't know. I haven't read it. I haven't seen it anywhere. We may see him in the Clark. If he goes in the Clark and he has a good showing there, he loves Churchill Downs. It is not without possibility that he wins the Clark. At that point, I think it guarantees him the 3-year-old championship. But interesting, nobody's giving any love to Cyberknife. Really interested. Want to wish a belated happy Veterans Day to all of our veterans throughout HRRN Nation. Thank you for everything that you do for us and for our country. Much appreciated. My thanks to all my guests for being with me here this morning, including Junior Alvarado, Eric Hamelback, Kelly Wheeler, our unsung hero. John Sadler took time to join me this past week on Trainer Talk. You heard from him. Todd Pletcher, Mike Repole from the press conferences at Breeders' Cup. Jude Feld for filling in with the TwinSpires Triple Play. Kurt Becker strolled through racing history. And Dale and Tim with I Ask, They Answer. If you missed any portion of the show, head to our website, horseracingradio.net. Check out the podcast and do that on every major podcast platform. Now for my producer, Lee Delapina and Chauncey handling all of our social media, I'm Mike Penna. Thanks for listening. The Saints are marching into Pittsburgh. Go Steelers.